may you find time to go and collect. But if you have collected, there's no need for you to go for the second time. Some may have received T-shirts, others will receive caps and stuff. So let's try to make sure that we share. And regarding today's sessions, there's a slight amendment to today's program. We moved one of the sessions yesterday to today, the future of the profession. We moved it to today, and we're also going to move the IFAC President's address to the dinner gala. And on our afternoon activities, we have the rainforest tour, the boat cruise, and the President's Cup golf tournament. So we would want everyone to participate. So we will try to make sure that we are on time for today's sessions. And our dinner gala is also going to be in this room at 18:30 hours. So we will also require our sponsors to move some of the materials that we have in this room, the branding, so that we can prepare the room for this evening. Once again, good morning. Let me recognize the presence of our ICAS President, Madam Manyara Chigunduru, our Senior Vice President, Mr. Bryce Msendo, Junior Vice President, Mr. Emmanuel Mdefi, ICAS past presidents here present, Vulindlela Ndlovu, Emilia Chisango, Tapiwa Chizana, Davison Charamba. Let me recognize the ICAS Council, the ICAS CEO, Mr. William Mansoza, ICAS members, ladies and gentlemen, fellow accountants. May we give a round of applause to everybody who I have recognized. Let me also recognize our sponsors who have made it possible and easier for us to access these facilities and to make the function move smoother. Our platinum sponsor for the gala dinner, Old Mutual. Shall we give them a round of applause? And our other platinum sponsors, CBZ, Afrexim Bank, ZB, FBC, and Net1. May we give them a round of applause? We have our gold sponsors who are BDO Zimbabwe and Edgars. Another round of applause. Our silver sponsors, KPMG, a round of applause to KPMG. And our bronze sponsors, ACR Solutions, Deloitte, Delta, Grant Thornton, Tex Matrix, CAA, OK Zimbabwe, Baker Tilly, Marian Hill, Accounts on Co, and Unicaf. May we give them a round of applause. As we try to move into today's session, I'm sure yesterday we benefited from the speakers that we had. We had the Honorable Deputy Minister. He was here. He gave us a keynote address in terms of the ministry, who are our line ministry, water. I think we had a good one. I'm sure we still remember the three windows, the three types of kings, the mental health. I enjoyed the triangle. I will not say which one. At least I'm innocent on that one. That's what I know for myself. Then we had Dr. Fungura. He spoke about, the key statement: aspire to inspire before you expire. I think that was the key one for me. We had the KPMG team coming through on the ESG and climate change. So to kickstart our program for today, we have an advert from BDO, our sponsors. Yeah, the technical team is putting together. Looks like we having a slight issue there. The team is assuring me that they will be broadcasting in a moment. Okay. Looks like we have got a bit of a challenge. We will move on with our program. Someone has just whispered to me that you haven't told us who you are, your name. Okay, my name is Sakurai Mbanda. I'm a farmer by birth, as you hear from the name, trained as an accountant. That's the best summary, and working for a seed company, just the iron of it. So our first speaker for today, our first presenter, allow me to introduce our speaker for the first presentation, who is Nomalanga Ndlovu. She's the founder of Manswere, director at Outspoken Consultants. It's an organization that capacitates and equips organizations with skills to enhance productivity. She is an expert in customer service, grooming and etiquette, digital marketing, professionalism, and public speaking. I hope I will learn a few things as I try to embark on this journey of being an MC. She specializes in developing new solutions for customer engagement and marketing for organizations. She has trained over 250 SMEs under different development programs, and she's a board member of CCAZ and World Vision. Ladies and gentlemen, may we clap hands for Nomalanga as she comes to take the podium.
Good morning. I'm nervous, so I need you guys to smile a bit more. Everyone is frowning. Are we okay? Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much again to our MC for the introduction. My name is Norma. I am all the way from KwaBulawayo. So I always say that when people come and visit us in Bulawayo, they say Trukuyenda KwaBulawayo. But there's actually nothing like KwaBulawayo, right? It's actually GoBulawayo. But please, we always get excited when you visit us. So today I'm going to be talking on the skills that we need in order for us to remain relevant in our professions and also in the marketplace. So the first thing that I thought about when I saw the topic on the art of relevance is, what does relevance mean for me, and what does relevance mean for any professional? For me, relevance speaks into the art of staying connected. Are you connected in your family? Are you connected at work? Are you connected with your friends? Are you relevant as a husband? Are you still relevant as a wife in 2024? Are you relevant as a friend? Are you even still relevant as a sister? And also in 2024, are you relevant as an accountant? Okay, so are you relevant as an accountant? And what is keeping you relevant in your organization today? Are you going to be relevant in the next 20 years? And the role that you currently have in your organization, is it going to be relevant in 2035? Is your role currently going to be relevant in 2035? And in your organization right now, are you making a difference? Or is just an ordinary Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday? Please look at the next person and ask them, are you still relevant? So I went to the bank last week because I needed to do a bank transfer. And as I was doing the bank transfer, the teller said to me, Norma, we registered you for internet banking, so you are supposed to do this bank transfer using your laptop. So I then said to her, okay, let me open my laptop. She showed me how to do it. I did it in 2 minutes, and then I went out. As I walked out of the bank, I realized something. This teller, probably in 5-10 years, might not be relevant in the bank. If every person, or at least if 90% of Zimbabweans are able to transact online using their phones, using their laptop, if we have 30, 40, 50 tellers in the bank, are we still going to need them in 2025 or in 2030 or in 2035 or in 2040? So as that bank teller is sitting there in her office, sitting there in front of the bank and serving all of us, is she aware that she might not be relevant in 10 years? And what is she doing to ensure that in 10 years she has prepared herself to be relevant? Or is she going to be part of the people that are retrenched and she says, I lost my job, the bank doesn't care about us? Is it an issue of the bank, or it's an issue of you being relevant? Researchers say that by 2035, Africa's population will considerably be larger than that of India and that of China, which means that the demand for healthcare, education, housing, infrastructure is dramatically going to change. I have a question for everyone. So I forgot to say something. I'm not here to just present. I'm here just to activate our minds to think. So do you think that as Zimbabwe, we are ready for this big jump on population? Is our healthcare ready? Is our education system ready? Is our housing system ready? Is the country ready for the Gen Zs that we have right now? We call them AMA 2000. But are we in the corporate organizations ready to embrace the Gen Zs as they join us in the corporate world? For the first time in history, we have 4 different generations that are working in the workplace. We have the silent generation, baby boomers, Gen X, and millennials. Gen Z is still very new in the marketplace right now. And guess what? Gen Z is frustrating a lot of people. I'm hearing a lot of people saying Gen Zs are lazy. They don't want to work. They don't take instructions. So there's a lot of complaints coming from the baby boomers, Gen X, the millennials. Are we ready for Gen Z? Did we think about Gen Z? Are we appreciating the fact that Gen Z and probably the millennials are different? Now, I want to run through the different generations that we have. We have the traditionalist 1928 to 1945. Do we have anyone in this age group? So we have this team. We also have baby boomers 1946 to 1964. We have Gen X 1965 to 1980. And then we have the millennials 1981 to 1996, right? Now I want to tell you guys what makes them different when it comes to the workplace. The traditionalists are very loyal, respectful, very disciplined in the workplace. They enjoy having a fixed work schedule, and they want to physically be in the office. They want to leave the house, go to the office, go home, find food ready, and they settle down, right? These are the traditionalists. Anyone in this group? Okay, no one is going to tell me. Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. So we have 2 at the back, right? Okay, fantastic. So we've got 2. Then we have the next group. Okay, we have the baby boomers, 1946 to 1964. These ones, sense of duty, loyal as well, very respectful. When it comes to the work environment, you find that they will get the job done and deliver what needs to be done. They're not very problematic because they were born in a system and they operate according to the system. Then after the baby boomers, I hope I'm pressing this well. Okay, we have Gen X, right? Gen X is 1965 to 1980. Flexible working schedule, and they also support work-life balance. They are also similar to the other guys, right? They love things done in a structured way. They don't have a problem with going to the office, right? I'm going to run through so that I can share the other skills, right? So we also have millennials, right? Millennials are where a lot of us here are. 1981 to 1996. Fantastic. So these ones, when it comes to the work environment, they excel when there is a clear career path, and also they love personal development opportunities, right? So they love opportunities, they love work-life balance. And this group, apparently during COVID-19, right, they really enjoyed working in COVID-19 because they were working from home. But the generation before struggled when it comes to leading people during COVID-19. We'll get to that. After the millennials, we then have Gen Z, 1996 to 2012. These guys love company culture, and they also want diversity, equality, and also inclusion. So you find that these ones will tell you that we don't enjoy the work culture. They will use words like, this environment is toxic. They will tell you that our work environment is toxic. Why? They're just a different generation, and they have different what? They have different needs. Now, when it comes to relevance, I want to talk about leadership, and I will run through this so that the MC doesn't chase me away. In order for us to remain relevant, we have to master the art of leading across generations. Fantastic leaders, great leaders in the 21st century have to be able to lead across the different generations. You cannot continue operating the way that things were done in 1960 Chakut, when you have a 2012 person in the workplace. So number one, you need to master the art of communicating. 87% of millennials prefer digital communication, and 78% of the baby boomers prefer face-to-face communication. I have a client that I've been consulting for, I think for almost a year now. So when I got into the organization, they have a gentleman there who's around 60 and he's still working in the organization. So I would wake up in the morning and send an update on the WhatsApp group and say, guys, this is done, this is done, this is done, this is done, thank you very much. And he would send a message and say, these issues must be discussed in the office. So at first I thought to myself, I don't get paid to come to the office. I get paid to give you solutions and tell you what I've done. So for the first 3 months, there was tension. Nothing was getting done in the office. He was telling people, don't listen to that girl. She's being disrespectful. But guess what I realized? He was not the problem. We were just operating from different generations. He wanted me to come to the office. I don't like going to the office. So I then decided every Tuesday and every Thursday in the morning at 8 o'clock, I will go there and I'll be in the office from 8 to 10. Guess what? There's nothing that I'm actually doing in the office. He just wants to see me in the office. So now I go Tuesday, Thursday, and I chat with him and I ask him, Mr. Nkomo, how are you? How's the family? How is this? How is this? Guess what? He is now my best friend. I just had to change the strategy because I realized this is the generation that wants me to be in the office. However, as a millennial, I just want to work from home. I have a desk. I give you the solution. So my question to you as a leader, are you leading all the generations in your office, or you are leading one generation and you've forgotten how to operate with another generation? Second skill. Okay, millennial is now struggling with the technology. It's not me, it's the Gen Zs actually. I think that disc has that disc has the Gen Zs. Okay, so I think I might have gone a bit too far. Cultural understanding, right? Cultural understanding. A leader's ability to draw out strength from each generation is crucial. There are things that Gen Zs are good at. Technology, social media, internet. Right now, the big craze is TikTok. And corporates are asking themselves, what do we do with TikTok? Is TikTok necessary? Should we have a TikTok account? Should we have an Instagram account? Should we be on Facebook? What do we do? Guess what? Gen Z is good with that. Millennials are the generation that grew up when there was no internet, and they were also there when there's internet. So they also have a fairly good amount of knowledge and excitement when it comes to that. So as a leader, guess what? If you have 4 generations, you have 4 skills in your team. But guess what we do as leaders? The mistake that we make, we focus only on the top 2 generations. We're afraid of the millennials. We're afraid of the Gen Zs. So what do? My way or nothing at all. We don't mentor them because we don't realize that we also have the power to show them the way that things are done and also structure. So it's important for you to maximize on Gen Z's knowledge, right? Gen Z's knowledge. Number 3 skill, emotional intelligence. Leaders who demonstrate high emotional intelligence skills such as communication, empathy, active listening, and also the ability to motivate are very essential to the team. The millennials need to be motivated. The millennials need to be driven. The millennials want to know, where are we going? How are we getting there? And what is my role to this vision that we have? The millennials are also very creative. Gen Zs, I've noticed, because I've also, being a millennial, the Gen Zs I've worked with, I've also thought to myself, I think these Gen Zs are lazy. But one of the things I noticed was that I was the problem. Because I was leading the way that I was trained to lead by Gen X. My Gen X mentors and my Gen X leaders were very strict, very harsh. Guess what? For me, it worked. But for the Gen Z, it's not working because they told me I'm toxic. So the reviews I would get when people were leaving, I'd say, but why are you leaving? This is an exciting environment to work in. And they said, Noma, we love you, but you're too tough and the environment has become toxic. It was hard for me to hear, but guess what? I changed. And I realized that these guys wanted to talk to me. They want to be friends with the boss, but still having a boundary where they realize this is our boss, but guess what? They want to be able to come into the office and say, boss, what do you think about that? I've got this idea. The moment I opened the doors, it was very hard for me, by the way. But the moment I opened the doors, I noticed that we were getting more work done with the Gen Zs because they trusted me and they loved the fact that they could come to me. So I had to work on my listening, my ability to motivate people as well. Creative thinking. Leaders who recognize that interactive creative thinking builds upon existing ideas and concepts slowly over time. Another example I'll give you, I worked in a think tank, right? The think tank was in DC. Every Monday, we always had what the boss would call think sessions for 2 hours. Would get coffee. That's where I got addicted to coffee, by the way. So for 2 hours, he would say, think. Let's think about how to do this. How do we come up with a new solution for this product? How do we communicate with the client with this product? How do we enhance our customer experience? Are you currently allowing your team to think? If you do not allow the teams that you have to think, you're going to become irrelevant soon. Either your teams are going to leave you, or you're constantly going to be regurgitating the same information, same ideas all the time, and things are going to remain boring. Strong facilitation. Leaders who can facilitate respectful discussions and reframe generational differences as opportunities for group learnings as well will remain relevant. Can you have respectful conversations with your team? Sometimes as the leader, you're messing up. Do you have the ability to listen when your team communicates and says, sir, this idea is not working? I want to tell you something that employees do, right? They attend meetings. After they attend the meeting, they say yes to everything that the boss said. Afterwards, when they leave, all of them will say, that idea is not going to work. But there's nothing we can do because the boss said it's his way or no other way. So everyone in your team is aware that the idea is going to fail. And when it fails, guess what they say? They all look at each other and they say, we knew it was not going to work. So what is your team currently saying after the meetings? What is the team currently saying after the meetings? Leaders have to be flexible. For millennials and Gen Zs, flexibility in the workplace is a non-negotiable. Gen Zs don't want to wear suits to the office. Gen Zs want to put on a blazer, jeans, sneakers. They want to come in with their backpack, with their laptops. They want to deliver. Gen Zs want to come up with solutions. They do not want to wear suits. But guess what? Baby boomers and Gen X, they're the suit guys. They want to wear the suits, right? Because the suits mean authority. They speak to us for that generation. But is the suit necessary? In order for us to remain relevant as leaders, we need to also be flexible here and there. I've seen a lot of organizations, now they have Friday. Friday, we call it Casual Friday, right? Casual Friday, I think, was also just Gen X as well, just saying, okay, let's just give them an opportunity to put on the what? To put on the jeans. Technology is very important. When COVID-19 hit, a lot of organizations realized that they didn't have a lot of portals to communicate with their customers. Marketing had come and said, we need to be on social media, we need to be on Facebook, we need to be on Instagram, but the boss had said, no, the social media is just not necessary. All of a sudden, everybody was locked up at home. How do you communicate with people? Through social media. So now all of a sudden, we put pressure on the marketers. We're like, marketers, how are we going to communicate with the clients? We're not on social media. What do the people want? So technology, the digital media spaces that we have are very critical. Number 8, mobilize mentoring. Gen Z actually needs mentoring. As much as Gen Z pretends like they know everything, they don't. They need the baby boomers and the Gen Xers to mentor them. Have you noticed how you bump into Gen Z and they come to you and they say, please mentor me? Most of the time they really don't know what they mean, but they're asking for information. They need guidance. The reason why a lot of young people right now in the Gen Z era are stressed, depressed, and some of them are committing suicide is because they don't have anyone to talk to. They're looking for mentoring from fathers, they're looking for mentoring from mothers, they're looking for mentoring from the corporate. Because most of the time the corporate seems very far from them. So they only have each other down there in the Gen Z world, but when it comes to the corporate environment, they don't have access. How many Gen Zs do we have in the room today? Fantastic, right? But we have NUST, we have MSU, we have UZ accounting students. We need to have 1 or 2 or 3 of them attending such platforms so that they can be guided, because they need the information that you all have today. Okay, there's the old way of doing things, there's also the new way of doing things. But in your organizations today, I challenge us to be relevant by bringing the old and the new and coming up with a new culture of doing things. Don't be afraid of new ideas. I believe that if you keep doing things the old way, one day you're going to wake up and you're going to be irrelevant. The marketplace is going to forget about you. I'm not going to mention names, but we've seen in the marketplace that we've got a new player in the game when it comes to money transfer. But there were other players before a couple of years that were big in the marketplace. What happened? Why have we forgotten about them? Because another new kid in the block came and they took over. My second of last question, how did you lead during COVID? As a leader, how did you lead during COVID? Were you the leader that was constantly calling meetings and everyone was online every minute? You want updates, I need updates. People during COVID had high anxiety because we were always on Teams. We were always on Teams. One of the reasons why we were on Teams was because the leaders were not sure, how do I lead people from home? How do I lead people from the kitchen? How do I lead Noma while she's cooking in the kitchen, at the same time she's online? How do I lead her even from the car? I was the worst employee, by the way, during COVID. Because I was on Teams, but I was in my car. I was on Teams, but I was at OK Match sometimes. And I was responding because I said, we're always on Teams meeting. So my question to you is, how did you lead during COVID-19? If you led badly, you were being irrelevant during the COVID-19 experience. My last point, in order for us to remain relevant, it is important for us to begin to create customer experiences. The customer currently has a lot of options, by the way. The customer has a lot of options. I said to a friend of mine the other day that we have so many SMEs in the informal sector. We have many SMEs that are registering their companies. They still look small. But have we started creating products for them? Because guess what? In the next 10, 15 years, they're the ones who are going to be the big corporates in the marketplace. But because we've forgotten them, because we're not creating products for them, when they're the big corporates, they're not going to want to work with you. They're going to work with another small kid in the block that grew up with them. Even in the accounting world, are we creating products for that SME who currently has 4 employees, who has 3 employees, or do they still seem like they're small today? But in the next 10 years, you might just be knocking on their doors and saying, we want to do financials for you. Where were you in 2024 when I still needed financials for that company with my 5 employees? So reimagine customer experience. What is your current customer experience and what are your touch points looking like? We have different touch points. Social media is a touch point. The reception is a touch point. Your office is a touch point. This conference is a touch point. What is the experience that people are having? One of the most dangerous things that organizations do is that they're not sure what their customer experience is. They don't have touch points. They're not listening to the customer. When you don't listen to the customer, someone else is going to listen to the customer. I like giving a classic example about relationships, and I say, whenever a man is wooing a woman, he has the best customer experience. The best customer experience you've ever seen. He'll take you on dates, come and pick you up in the car, open the door for you. I mean, do you have airtime? Do you have data? Have you eaten? I want you to go shopping. High level customer experience. But guess what? The moment he now has the woman, the girlfriend, the wife, you name it, the customer experience drops to nil. The danger in that is that another service provider could easily pop up. And guess what? That service provider is going to look for your loopholes. And when they find those loopholes, guess what they do? They go hard. Same principle in the marketplace. If you sleep and you don't listen to your customer, there's another kid on the block right by the corner. He's watching your loopholes. And when they come into the market, guess what they're going to do? They're just going to hammer you on all of those. Reimagine the workplace. Reimagine customer experience. Reimagine what leadership means in 2024. Reimagine what the ICARS conference is. Reimagine what we're going to look like next year. Reimagine us having 20 students that we're going to even, pay to come for the conference. Let's reimagine having them even on the panels. Let's hear what they're saying. What are the university students thinking right now? What information do they need? How can we mentor them? In order for us to remain relevant, we have to reimagine leadership, reimagine where we're going to be in the next 5 years, reimagine where we're going to be in 2035. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Another round of applause to Oma. So reimagine what the Institute will be like with the Gen Zs in the next 10 years. They will not want to come to Elephant Hills, probably. And they would want to have the conference from somewhere. Noma, thank you so much for this brilliant presentation. May I ask the ICARS CEO to come and do the presentation of our little gift to Noma? Those two. Right. Cameraman, can you move a bit quicker? Thank you. Right, thank you. We move on. We're trying to catch up on our time. May I call upon the representative of Edgars? We have Mr. Sevius Mshosho. Yeah, you'll come and do a quick presentation. Then we go on to our panel discussion. May we give a round of applause to Edgars as they come to take the podium.
Professionalism is paramount. You navigate complex financial landscapes, ensuring accuracy and projecting confidence. At Edgars, we understand the power of a well-curated wardrobe in building trust and establishing your credibility. Our pieces are designed to make a lasting impression, reflecting your expertise and dedication. From sharp suits to exclusive outfits, you'll find everything you need. Our sister store, Jet, offers trendy styles at budget-friendly prices, allowing you to maintain a professional work wardrobe while staying on trend. Beyond exclusive outfits, Edgars offers a solution for managing your personal finances with ease. At Club Plus, we understand the needs of the modern individual. We offer personalized financial solutions and remittance services that allow you to send money conveniently, both locally and internationally. But what if you're looking for something truly exceptional at a competitive price? Look no further than Express. Express offers a range of exceptionally low-priced clothing, making it easier than ever to find the perfect piece without compromising on style. For a truly unique, exclusive look, Carousel, Our in-house manufacturing division can bring your custom designs to life, helping you showcase your brand identity. From protective clothing to uniforms to your exclusive corporate wear, Carousel has the best machinery to meet all your clothing needs locally. Here is how to get started. Your company can open a flexible ZIG or USD corporate credit account, which can be paid over 30 days, 60 days, or even 90 days. As an individual, you can also open an individual ZIG or USD credit account that offers zero deposit on the first purchase, and you can pay over 6 or 9 months. This gives you access to timeless fashion that allows you to project an air of authority and success while offering convenient payment solutions. So focus on what you do best while Edgar's takes care of your wardrobe needs. Edgar's Stores Limited, where exclusivity meets trust.
There you go. Come on, a round of applause. Well, let me recognize first the Deputy Minister in Finance and Economic Development. Good morning, sir. We invite you to come to Edgar's for your wardrobe. Thank you. I want to recognize also other government officials here present. Our President, Madam Manyara, and the Presidium, our council members, past presidents, all members, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here today and speak with such a distinguished group of professionals. As accountants, you play a pivotal role in the financial health and strategic planning of business across industries. But today I want to share some insights into the world of fashion and how as Edgar's we are changing the fashion landscape in Zimbabwe. Fashion over the years is an ever-evolving industry characterized by rapid changes in trends, consumer preferences, and global dynamics. But as Edgar's, we pride ourselves on being at the forefront of innovation, creativity, and sustainability. We've been in existence in this country for 78 years, since 1946, giving original, exclusive fashion that cuts across all generations. We dress all the generations Noma was talking about. We did well in the past. We've made mistakes in the past, but now we are on top of the game to bring back the memories of shopping at Edgar's or Sales House. I'm sure the other generations know Sales House, but Noma might not know Sales House. We've listened to our customers and responded with precision. We now stock some very exciting wide range of fashion that includes clothes, accessories, and footwear. We profiled our customers into 3 main categories. Our flagship chain is our Edgar's chain, which offers fashion that appeals to the middle to top income brackets. We are looking after our top-end market with an exclusive production out of Turkey of the highest quality. Just like what I'm wearing today. Straight from Turkey. You can look at this range at Avondale, Borodo store, Sterling House store in First Street in town Harare, Ascot store in Bulawayo, and Jason Moy branch in Bulawayo. And our Carousel division, which is mainly our manufacturing division, was retooled recently to produce high quality merchandise from carefully selected fabrics. And we are proud of this achievement. I think we've bought several machines worth about $1 million and these machines can stitch anyhow at the speed you want them to. They're automated. What it means is you can produce the finest garment out of the best quality fabric that can appeal to anybody all over the world. That's why this year we're going to be starting exporting South Africa, because we believe in ourselves. We've got very exciting designers in Bulawayo there, and we've got Innovation Hub in Bulawayo, and we're doing great things there. Brands like Faithway, if you know Faithway, that is designed and produced in Bulawayo. Whatever Faithway range you see in Edgar stores, that's exceptionally exciting quality is coming out of Bulawayo. And we introduced Court brand in 2014. Most of our customers thought it was imported, but it's designed and produced in Bulawayo. You need to go and check it out. Kudos to our young and versatile and innovative designers at the Carousel factory there. And those designers are millennials and Gen Zs, normal. So they've taken some time to understand also other generations, and they're doing great things. Then we've got Jet Chain that caters for the middle to low income brackets. So this is mainly supplied by Carousel and our local partners. We've got few imports to spice up the store out of South Africa. It has evolved to become a household brand where the entire family can shop. And it's famously known for Babe of the Year. That's our Jet Chain. Then recently, we have reintroduced our express stores, which will mainly be catering for the low-income bracket. I'm sure millennials may not know, maybe they will know about express store as well, but the express store was there, and we changed it to Jet. But then we realized that our citizens were being forced to buy second-hand clothes from some people, I don't know them. So what we're doing is express stores will be producing out of Carousel new clothes that will be selling cheaply between $1 and $10. And these stores will be located where people are. I'm sure, Noma, you understand what I mean? Where people are. So we want to make sure that every citizen of this country is able to access clothes at affordable rates. And we're prepared to do that. So you expect to see express stores, downtowns, growth points, our DCs, and also we do containers and mobile vans to just make sure that we reach out to everyone else. So ladies and gentlemen, please check out our clothes, our cosmetics, our footwear at the nearest Edgar stores, Jet stores, and express stores. And please give us feedback, because we want to make sure that we look after you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edgar. As we can tell, they are getting ready for the 21st century customer. This morning, let me call upon our moderator for the next session that we're going into, Mr. Jonas Jonga. Mr. Jonas Jonga is a partner at BDO Zimbabwe. He is currently the COO for BDO Chartered Accountants, and he has got more than 20 years experience as an ICAS member. That's a lot of it. That means he has a number of generations that he has taken care of. So our next session, we're going to discuss about the Zimbabwe economy and the monetary policy. May we give a round of applause to Mr. Jonga as he comes to take up the
Good morning, colleagues. Let me start by recognizing our dignitaries here present, the Deputy Minister. We also have the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. I also want to recognize the ICAS Presidium, the past presidents of ICAS, as well as the future presidents as well of ICAS. Thank you. Thank you to the MC for introducing me. I was really struggling what I was going to say if I were going to do a self-introduction. It's been a while since I did a self-introduction. I was thinking of going back to my preschool days. Maybe I'll share the lines with you what I would have said if I were to introduce myself. Myself. My name is JJ. I am a boy. Thank you. So that's what I would have done, but thank you for introducing me in a much better way. So today we're going to be talking about a very topical issue, the Zimbabwean economy. It's an area of interest for all of us. The good thing is I think we've got an A list of panelists to discuss the issues. We've got the authors of our fiscal policies and our monetary policies in the room, and we also have independent economic experts to help us unpack the monetary policy. The way I'm going to structure this discussion is we'll start off with the panelists giving an overview of various facets of our economic and monetary policy. And then we get into a question and answer session led by the moderator. Of course, I'll go first in terms of asking the questions. And then we open up to the floor. Everyone has got a chance to ask some questions. I know it's money issues. Let's not get emotional, because sometimes we get too emotional when we talk about money. In addition to asking questions, I think us as ICAS members, we have seen a lot in terms of practically on the ground what is happening there. May we also then proffer some solutions. It's not just about asking questions. I'm sure we've got some contributions that we can make. So I'll be calling up to come to the podium, the panelists. First, we're going to start with Deputy Minister. I'm really struggling. Do I need to even give his profile again? Yesterday, I think we went through the long profile. We know his qualifications, unless he got another qualification last night. I may have to add that one.
My name is David. I am a boy.
Thank you. Okay. Up next is in the room, we've got Dr. Innocent Mashe, who is the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank. He's an immediate former director of the African Economic Research Consortium. He was appointed the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank effective 1st of December 2022. He is in charge of economic research and policy, information technology, IT, fintech. He's got quite a lot that he has done in his life. He's an expert in applied and policy economic analysis, and he has held various prominent positions internationally. You can go ahead, please.
My name is Innocent. I am also a boy.
Thank you. Then we also have Mr. Dumisani Sibanda. He is an experienced policy researcher with a demonstrated history of working with international donor agencies, government, large corporates, quasi-government agents, regulators, and has been involved with so many organizations and has made various contributions. Thank you.
Shall I also say I'm a boy?
Thank you. And then finally, we've got Kudzanai, who is Sharara. He's a financial and economic analyst. He's got more than 15 years of experience. He is the founding partner of Trigrams Investments, an investments research and analysis boutique, and Victoria Falls nominees. And before he formed Trigrams Investments, he headed the research department at Linton Edwards Stockbrokers as a financial equities analyst from January 2010 to August 2017. He holds a Master's of Technology in Strategy and Innovation, a Bachelor of Commerce in Financial Management, and has qualifications in Investment and Portfolio Management. Thank you.
Andistongothi ngoma ndiyo, I'm a boy.
Thank you. So it's a boys' club. So yeah, yesterday I think we had a comprehensive discussion. The Deputy Minister did take us through our current state, the framework, the policies that the government is having, and also the future. But I believe maybe on further reflection, as he was thinking of what he had said, and also as he was interacting with members last night, so many other thoughts may have come to him. So, Deputy Minister, you can go ahead and give your insights, your additional insights to what you gave us yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, JJ. I think I'll bring this a bit closer. I won't labor too much on some of the achievements that the Second Republic has gone through. I think a lot of it is going to come out in our discussions. But I'd like to highlight that since the advent of the Second Republic, Zimbabwe has gone through a season of transformational growth. I think the infrastructure development is evident for itself to see. And I shudder to say that this has been done in a space of maybe about 3 or 4 years. I say that because, Second Republic was ushered in with the calamity, Cyclone Idai, which had, magnificent response. And then we went through COVID and the drought. So if you look at the productive years that we've had as a country and what we've done, positioning ourselves on average growing at 6.6% as a country. We had 8.5% in 2021, 6.5% in 2022, 5.5%. I think it was revised slightly downwards to 5.3% in 2023. You realize that we've been growing as a nation. And that growth comes out of the strategy that we are on, a journey that is going to see us become an upper middle income economy, which I described yesterday, granulated to the individual, means a better quality of life for every Zimbabwean. So this is the journey that we're on. You'll find that the fiscal policies that we have are in tandem with the monetary policy to enable us to get to this desired benchmark that we're going through. You'll find that over the next few months, years, we'll continue with the tight fiscal and monetary policies that we have, the discipline, but this is not going to hamper the growth. And again, JJ, this has come from our own people. As Zimbabweans, we haven't had any help. This has been organic growth. The figures are there, the proof of the pudding has been in the eating, it is there, the results are there to show for themselves. So I would like that to be the grander context of the conversation, to at least acknowledge that, there has been growth, there has been, steps in the right direction. Yes, no journey is smooth, there can be challenges, but generally I'd like to say that we are moving in the right direction. I'll leave that as my prelude. Thank you.
Thank you for those insights, Deputy Minister. We really acknowledge that as Zimbabweans, there's a lot that we can do. I'm not going to be advertising for you, Mshosho, but I liked what you were saying. You've got clothes coming out of Bulawayo. It's Zimbabweans doing it. I'm sure all of us, we can do the same. Then up next, we will call upon the Deputy Governor, who seems to have done quite a lot in a short space of time as well. Since the introduction of the ZIG, we have seen some measure of stability. So I'll give him a chance to explain the magic of ZIG, how it is performed, and also what is there in the outlook. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. Let me give you just a brief of a few of the economic outlook numbers that we faced with, that we were faced with, and that we are trying to deal with as we go forward. But firstly, let me talk about the country's monetary situation, which I am sure everybody here wants to hear. I should reassure everyone in this room that the country's monetary situation has improved significantly since the recalibrated monetary policy of the 5th of April this year. The exchange rate, you are accountants, so you know this, and the prices are relatively stable. And let me underline what stable means. It doesn't mean they remain the same. It means they are fluctuating with a steady average. And that average can be growing, but it has to be steadily growing. As you know, our economy is a developing economy, and as it expands, there are equilibrium forces that lead to some expansion. But as the Honorable Deputy Minister pointed out, this is happening in a very controlled but growing economy, meaning that with time, our GDP continues to expand, that is to grow. The ongoing stability, however, is based on internal resources. So there will be internal pressures on resources. For example, the Honorable Minister talked about infrastructural development that is there for all to see. This is being financed by instruments that in other economies that have the luxury to do so, they use long-term instruments. A lot of the times we don't have that luxury, so we use short-term instruments, but infrastructure by its nature is a long-term investment. So those pressures that emanate from there are pressures that we have to deal with on a daily basis. The economy has been growing in a microeconomic environment that can be termed volatile, but it is showing resilience. And sustained economic stability will go a long way in supporting businesses, in supporting particularly manufacturing and investment. Now, in terms of the exchange rate developments, what I would like to share with you is the fact that the Zimbabwe gold, our recently launched currency, has shown stability since its introduction. The exchange rate has been moving in tandem with the price of gold and the basket that we use to back the currency, which in essence anchors our ZiG. Parallel market activity has been effectively contained with lower premiums observed in isolated parallel market activities. Let me tell you something here that is important to note. The FIU has been very active in doing its job. And what we've noted is that the fact that there is stability doesn't mean there are no isolated pockets of delinquency. They are there and they will remain until everybody is convinced of the stability of the currency that they have in their bank accounts. So we are aware of that, and it's not going to happen overnight. We are aware of that. However, we implore all Zimbabweans to understand that the stability in the currency, in the exchange rate, is for the benefit of all Zimbabweans. It's not only for the benefit of the big players, some of whom are seated in here, but it's important for all of you. For accountants, of course, it makes your life easier if the currency and the exchange rate is stable, isn't it? So it is important for all of us to realize that it is our duty to enable this to happen. In terms of what I was asked to talk about, how we have pulled the magic, let me just say, Honorable Minister has talked about the fact that we are maintaining a tight monetary policy stance and a tight fiscal stance. That will continue until we have anchored the stability. We are absolutely convinced that although this will come with some pain, it is a cafenol which is bitter, but which will treat the disease long term. So the tight monetary policy is to continue, and the results are already showing. However, somebody said, we are celebrating the stability. Not yet, Minister. We are not celebrating. We are noting the stability. We need to continue to put the foot on the gas to make sure that the exchange rate is so stable that convertibility is a matter of time. In terms of ZiG inflation for May, you have all seen the figures. We had some disinflation in May. I interpret it to be a readjustment because the exchange rate seemed to have overshot when the Reserve Bank let market forces determine the level of the exchange rate itself. So what happened is that there was an adjustment. And the good thing is all this was market determined. Because if you remember, the exchange rate at the beginning was established using the parallel market rate. So it was not a number picked out of the air. It was a number that was determined by market forces. And our approach is to try as much as is possible to let the market determine the rate and let the reserves we have anchor our currency going forward. So in June, as you have heard, the inflation rate was about 0%, which we celebrate, Because after the readjustment, we wanted to see where our inflation rate would be. And at 0%, it is excellent. It wouldn't surprise me if it will drift upwards a little, but that's normal. And somebody asked, we saw the ZiG, the value of ZiG depreciate. Are we supposed to be worried? And my answer is no. Because the value of any currency will fluctuate on a day-to-day basis. But the important thing, as I said earlier, is that the average is constant. So let me stop here and take any discussion points as we go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Governor. Thank you for the insights. It seems like you have already started answering the questions that I had. But we can move on to Mr. Sibanda, if you can give us your insights. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. I have to talk from the private sector perspective. I think the minister and the deputy governor, they're talking from the point of view of being policymakers. I think what we are experiencing is very important in the sense that most of us sitting in this room come from the private sector. We are not from the public sector. Actually, I wanted to check to say how many of the chartered accountants here work in public service, in central government, local authorities, and so on. I don't think there's any. Is there anybody here who is employed in government? Among the chartered accountants? Oh, okay, that's good to know. As an employee? Oh, that's good. And I have to talk from the private sector perspective so that we have got balance. And I think our experience since the introduction of ZiG is that we noticed that there are certain definite constraints with ZiG. What happened with introduction of ZiG is that local costs, regulatory costs, just shot up. From local authorities
Zinara, all those costs have gone up so much. They've become real costs. And at the level where the exchange rate for ZiG was pitched, it became the most expensive currency in the region, saying that our rate is stronger than the rand, which is our main trading partner. So we have become a high-cost environment. And what I can say is, observing what's happening in Blair, where there is supposed to be many of these manufacturers, a lot of them have actually downsized. They're operating on 3 days a week, others 5 days a week, and there's a lot of anticipated closure because of the environment being a high-cost environment. And exports have become less viable for many of the companies that are exporting. You look at even the way the environment is, that it is too rigid in terms of regulatory costs. I'm sure even the mining sector, they're experiencing that with a depression in prices. There's no flexibility coming from all the administered costs which are input to the mines. So I think we need to interrogate the issue of introducing ZiG and the statements which tend to come out. And those statements in a market-driven economy would have led to the crash of ZiG. But it doesn't, because the way the rate is determined, it is fixed on gold, whatever formula is being applied. I'm sure the governor can explain. Not so much demand and supply. And I think for those who have to access foreign currency, we're aware that there is now a delay in being able to access foreign currency. And I was just doing a computation. I had prepared a spreadsheet where I looked at numbers. You know, from 2013 to about 2017, 2018. When you look at those numbers, you look at system deposits, how much was in the deposits, and then you look at how much was held by banks, nostrils, and so on. As system deposits were increasing, we find that the amount of money that was available and convertible to be paid outside the country was reducing. And one of the things that was coming out was that there was the RPZ overdraft, which was ballooning. We know that they've since said that they will make sure that they won't go into the RPZ overdraft. And one of the other features that was coming out were treasury bills. As the RPZ overdraft was increasing, treasury bills increasing, the amount of system deposit was also going up. And what we're observing now is that there's an increase in treasury bills. We know there's been, in the last report, I think by IMF, they mentioned that domestic debt increased to about 21 billion, 3 billion being recently issued treasury bills. That will have an effect in terms of money that is available. Because when you have a treasury bill, you discount it when you want to. It has become private property, and you will no longer have control over it. You don't know how it's going. We don't know what the terms of those treasury bills are. But we know from 2015, 2016, treasury bills were issued. They were agri-based treasury bills, and they just messed up the whole economy. And I think we are in that trend. And I think it is for us to be genuine and say, what are the implications of this? What is the implication of ZiG? What I see, based on the formula that they are using to determine the exchange rate, that is the ZiG exchange rate, is that we may have the stability, but we will not have the foreign currency. Somehow it will just be going down because of the treasury bills being issued and those treasury bills being discounted. And depending on the discount rates, I have had discount rates of about 40%, which shows that if we have got that degree of discounting of rate, the person holding this asset, which is a treasury bills, is so much keen to access foreign currency, more than they would want to wait until the treasury bill matures. I think those are some of the risks that we should be very sincere about and evaluate the implications of some of these policy measures. The private sector, in my own assessment and various studies, we notice that the private sector in Zimbabwe is becoming weaker and weaker. And where we've got even all the infrastructural programs that are going on, they are going on being internally funded. And one of the main problems that is there is that the government is not paying its creditors on time. And it is, we are not saying they should just print money to pay creditors, but government should commit itself to what it can pay for on time. There are all these contractors who have been doing work. We know that payments have been suspended and most of the money is going towards Mount Hampton and the developments there. But we've got all these other people who are sitting and struggling. They have not been paid. What actually happened in the past, which is a repeat of what we have done before, is that from 2009 to 2013, I know I might sound not very popular. I know Tendai Biti was in many cases seen as a star finance minister. But there's one thing that you will notice which happened during that time. They were not paying creditors. They were working on a cash book basis, and I know the president yesterday talked about that the government should actually speedily move to the accrual-based accounting, so that all creditors are brought in and they are accounted for. When Chinamasa became finance minister after 2013 elections, he was faced with this huge amount of creditors who had not been paid since 2009. That's what led to the Ministry of Finance creating an overdraft of about 1.4 billion in RBZ so that they could pay a lot of private sector companies, which were about to fold because some of them had not been paid since 2009. So it is very important that when we are looking at the cash position of the country, we look at it genuinely and we have a correct balance sheet where all accruals have been met. If we say we have made a surplus or we've made a deficit, it should be genuine, not where we want to be politically correct, but where we are actually bringing up issues so that we can make correct decisions. And I think the other thing that comes out, I'd say talking to accountants would be interesting, is that when you look at indicators which show how the country is being governed, there's what they call economic freedom indicators. And it has got a lot of parameters they measure. And one of them is that of consensus building. When we introduce ZIG, when we want to have monocurrency, it should be involving all parties. You know, the wisdom and judgment of everybody must be taken into account. It should not be a monopoly where those in government who are policymakers
Mr. Sibanda,
make a decision. I think
I'll give you just one more minute.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
thank you.
I just wanted to say this thing of participation and bringing everybody in board. I think we have got the cream here in this room. They've got so much knowledge. They encounter all sorts of experiences from the broad clientele that they have to deal with. And that experience should be tapped and be used in terms of how policy is formulated. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much. Let's give me a round of applause. I think you've highlighted quite a number of blind spots we need to be aware of. When we get to the question and answer session, I'll give the Deputy Minister a chance to respond to some of your views and what they're doing as government. Then up next, we will allow Mr. Kudzai Sharara to give his own perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I audible? Can you hear me? Okay. Before I go to, I had prepared a presentation as per the requirements, but I'll adjust. So when one of my friends heard that I was coming to speak here, he was nagging me for the past 3 weeks to say, please go and talk about bank charges. So yesterday I finally gave up and said, okay. I finally gave in and said, okay, what are the bank charges like? And then he sent me a pricing booklet. So it was not a pricing list, but it was a pricing booklet from one of the banks. And they had about 312 touch points where they charge you a fee. So I was like, okay, you must be careful not to look at their buildings because they might charge you for doing that.
So I think the issue of stability has been, I think the Deputy Governor spoke about the stability, and I think all of us, we have seen it in terms of inflation, which has really gone down to almost 0%. We have also seen in terms of exchange rate stability. It's very stable within a range between 13 and 14. And then in the effective rate being used by businesses, maybe we can say the rate is between 14 and 15, which is it has been stable within that range for the past 3 months. And I was looking at the numbers to try and see how they've managed that. In the past, instability was coming because of the printing. But if you look at the numbers that have been provided by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe on their weekly report, you would see, if you just look at the RTGS that go through the national payment system, you compare your ZiG and the US dollar, there hasn't been much change between the RTGS payments that would go through before we had ZiG and the RTGS payments that you go through after we had ZiG. Prior to ZiG, we had payments roughly around 276 million in ZiG, and after we introduced ZiG, the average is again around 277 million. Although in the last few weeks, I think in the last 4 weeks, we have seen an upsurge in terms of the level of ZiG going through our systems. I think it went up to about 338, and we have also seen what has been happening on the stock market now, where in the market capitalization in the stock market between May and now has gone up by 105%. And if you look at the volumes or the turnover on the stock market, has also gone up by 128% just between the end of May and the 18th of July. That shows you that there is money out there that is looking for a home. And I did my research and realized that a few weeks ago, government paid their contractors, or let's say suppliers, about 20 million US dollars, but it was paid in ZiG. So there is that, I think that's the reason why we have started to see, I think we had gone for 3 months without hearing people asking where the rate is. But now we are starting to hear higher rates, maybe 20, 21. Although there isn't much activity happening in that space. There isn't much activity happening in that space because the financial intelligence unity is out there. However, it's about sentiment. It's about what people are saying. So when you hear that this is the rate, we have started to see some businesses also pricing their products at those levels, as much as even though there isn't much activity that is happening on the payroll market, they are struggling to, I think the Deputy Minister spoke about, to say they have got their team that they send out in those groups, WhatsApp groups where money changers are. And if somebody says I'm buying or selling at 21, and you ask them, okay, I need that money, they don't have they can't meet those requirements. So the stability is there. We have all seen it. But however, so we've got calm waters at the top, and I want to speak to the pain points that are the undercurrent. At the top, you can see the sea is very stable, but what is happening below that, you've got turbulence. And I want to talk about some of the pain points that the business community is facing in terms of the ease and of using ZiG. How to trade, has it been difficult? So we've had executives that would, under normal circumstances, an executive should not be going to their supplier to negotiate to say, I want to pay you in ZiG. So you're spending time negotiating your suppliers, negotiating with your bankers, trying to see whether they can accept ZiG. And I'll give you a very good example. For the past 3 weeks, I've been talking to people, and I've been getting anecdotes from executives. I'll give you one value chain where one retail outlet wanted to pay their own supplier with ZiG, and the supplier said, fine, we will accept your ZiG, but before we accept your ZiG, we want to go to our own supplier and see if they will accept ZiG. They went to the other supplier, and the supplier said, fine, I would have loved to accept your ZiG. However, I import 95% of my raw materials I import them, so I need US dollars. So the supplier called this bank and said, okay, hold on a minute, let me call my bank. They called the bank and said, okay, I've got one of my clients who wants to give me 600,000 US dollars, but in ZiG. Will I be able to convert the ZiG into US dollars? And they said, well, if we try, we can give you 20,000 out of that 600,000. And I'm sure bankers are here, they can confirm that they are only able to meet about 20% of the requirements by exporters. So there is that gap. And obviously this supplier then said, okay, my bank can't help me, so I can't help you. And then obviously you go also to your own customer and say, okay, I can't help you. And this particular manufacturer was telling me that they have not supplied one of their biggest customers for 3 months because the biggest customer wants to pay in ZiG, and the supplier is saying, I import all my products. Even if I agree to give you today, the next time you come back to me to pay, to source more raw materials or packaging, I will not be able to supply you because my bank cannot meet my requirements. So these are some of the pain points maybe that I can talk about now that the business community is facing in terms of convertibility of their ZiG balances, and they are growing. And unfortunately, even if you look at the payments that I was talking about from government, the $20 million that I was talking about, it's going to a very few players. And also, in the business community, there are very few players, especially retail outlets, that are accepting ZiG, which means that by the end of the day, their balances on their bank accounts of ZiG are growing, and they are not able. And one of the retailers said that in the next 2 months, if things don't change, if we don't get as much foreign currency as we want, we risk having stock shortages. So these are the challenges that are in the market, and maybe later on we can talk about what can be done in terms of increasing the use cases for the ZiG. I know there was talk about paying 50% of QPDs in ZiG. I'm not sure that is enough, because already holders of foreign currency are already surrendering about 25% of their foreign currency earnings. That 25% might be enough for them to meet their QPD requirements. So again, they won't be able, or they won't be compelled to sell their foreign currency. So we will continue to have that gap in terms of fungibility of the ZiG into US dollars, especially for those who want to import, and for those whose suppliers are not accepting ZiG or are using higher rates of ZiG. Maybe for now I can stop.
Thank you, Mr. Sharara. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. There you have heard it from the private sector perspective, and we also heard from the government side. What we want to do now is want to get into a question and answer session, but I'll ask my question as I then ask the Deputy Minister to respond. You can also respond to what the private sector is saying. I really liked what you said yesterday, Deputy Minister, when you said you can ask any question. So I picked my questions at random. You know, there's this issue of the stability we have been talking about. Everyone is quite happy and excited about it. But then there's the issue of predictability in business. You know, I did my quick search. Obviously, I don't know the source of the figures that I'm using, but I can't even vouch for the credibility. But what I gather is that last year, there were a total of 223 statutory instruments that were issued. And then this year, we are on 115, and the same period last year, we were on 128. So what it then does is it increases the level of uncertainty, and in terms of planning, it's very difficult for business to plan, especially long term. What's your view to that? Should we expect maybe a decrease in the SIs going forward? We understand the dynamics maybe, so you're trying to resolve certain issues, but at the same time as business, we expect some bit of predictability and certainty in the environment. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll start with your question, but maybe before, you made a very clear distinction between private sector and public sector, which I think would then become an unfair characterization of how we're sitting here. As we craft policy, it is not for government employees or for civil service, but ultimately for the private sector, which means that in any discussions, any engagements that we're having, we actually have to put ourselves in the shoes of the private sector, engage as much as we can, and I'll get to that. I'm just trying to demystify this whole issue around maybe the Ministry of Finance seeming as if it's a black box that just has a few individuals coming up with decisions. So I'd like to say that yes, we are public sector officials also taking care of private sector needs. But when it comes to predictability, I know SIs can be quite, can create a lot of anxiety, especially if you're a business owner and you've tried your best to make sure that you stick to the law. And I keep mentioning that we're on a journey. One thing you can be certain of is that we are on a roadmap to de-dollarization. And right now we have a mix of 85% or 80% US dollars and 20% use of local currency. As that mix changes, the fundamentals of the economy are going to change, which means that you have to adjust your laws and your legislation so that they're fit for purpose. So look at these SIs as refinement rather than inconsistency. Kudzai mentioned earlier on that there was a spike in trading on the ZSC. It's not because of $20 million US that was pumped into the market, but rather an SI that came out where, as the Ministry of Finance, we relaxed our financial and capital markets and removed the vesting period that had become so painful, and the capital gains tax, the 40% capital gains tax that was inhibiting trading. That's an SI that came out. For us to then wait until a budget review so that we have an omnibus of legislation while the markets are starving can be unfair. So you will find that maybe prior, maybe SIs would bring anxiety to the market, but let's look at them with more anxiety. Let's get excited when an SI comes out. It might be good. Let us change the feeling that we have whenever there's a change in law. And you counted 115 SIs this year. Was it 115 this year? Let's count how many were bad and how many were progressive. Let's look at it that way and see if we're playing comparatives to last year and this year. Of the 223 last year, how many brought pain? And of the 115 that were introduced this year, how many have been progressive? So that we can replace the word of predictability and inconsistency with refinement. That's the way I want to look at it. I'm not trying to prime everyone in this room for more SIs, but I'm just saying there will be refinements of legislation as we go along. And maybe let me go back to Mr. Sibanda's views, which he says, we're a private sector view. But I'd like to say what afflicts the private sector probably afflicts government even more. When we had huge inflation or inflationary pressures, it affected business, but it also affected government revenue. Because you are collecting what is of less value and have to pay for real value. So government was probably afflicted much more than the private sector. So these economic ills that come because of the existential circumstances that will be obtaining at the moment actually affect both the private sector and public sector. So I wouldn't want to make it seem as if there is more pain in any one sector. This is a Zimbabwean issue. When we say that local costs have gone up, I almost want to disagree and say that there's somewhat been a rebasing and normalization of costs. Before we had inflationary pricing. You price today, it's worth less maybe tomorrow, and it might seem cheaper. That's a result of inflation. Right now, the price is what it is. If a loaf of bread was 14 ZiG in April, it's 14 ZiG today. Prior, maybe by now, it would be, I don't know, 20, 30 ZiG, which would have made it seem cheaper, but now you're dealing with real costs. most businesses prior to this new currency regime made profit from trading currency. I know this because I'm also coming from the private sector. A huge markup came from actually trading currency and not from business operations. So the pinch that is being felt is removing the component of the inflationary profit which they were making. And usually when one person wins, it means another person is losing. When businesses were gaining from the inflation and loss of value of the currency, or even when businesses were gaining from the auction, it means that the currency was suffering and the people of Zimbabwe are suffering. Right now, this stability is what will make sure that there is real growth that can be spread out evenly across the country and not just benefit a few individuals or business people. So this is how we can truly attain an upper middle income society that translates to quality of life and not just GNI per capita. You also talk about a rate being fixed from formula from the RBZ, and maybe the governor will come in. But as far as I understood this, again, I might not be very technical, I think the RBZ only set the exchange rate once, and this was on the 5th of April. Since then, the RBZ has had nothing to do with the exchange rate. It is market determined through the interbank. Whether it's working or not, maybe it's another discussion that we can have. We might have a lot of willing buyers and not enough willing sellers. But I believe the Reserve Bank role has just been to publish the exchange rate. Yes, because a ZiG is a milligram of gold, and there's an inflation differential between the gold reserves and the cash that is in the vaults. The Reserve Bank will know what the value of the ZiG is supposed to be, which, if the exchange rate gets out of tandem, they can now intervene to take it back to where it should be, but not by setting an exchange rate. I might be mistaken in how it's working. I'm also keen, because you and me, Mr. Sibanda, will be sitting on the same side, because we need to watch these guys and make sure that they're doing the right thing. So I would want the governor to clarify on that. And then, there's always a misnomer around the treasury bills that are being issued. I'm not sure if, as treasury, maybe we should, for each treasury bill that is issued, write a statement or a cover note. I'm not sure. But the Public Debt Office actually has a very clearly defined system when they issue this public debt. There are profiles that are there with different maturities that make sure that it is in line with our budget, not just for this year, but for the next 3 years, which means that any issued debt is supposed to be in line with that to make sure that whatever we're collecting from taxpayers is going to be enough to pay back the debt that we have. So you pointed a lot to yesteryear issues which were around quasi-fiscal operations, which by law actually now prohibit the RBZ from carrying out those activities which ordinarily would have resulted in inflation or in money creation. And further to that, we now have a structure that we can all look at and see, because I mentioned that there was an upsurge of ZiG from 270 million in April, which is, I think they had 285 million worth of reserves to 338 million right now, which I understand that they have 370 million in their vault. So, your numbers for me seem to be correct and actually don't ring an alarm, because they speak to the structure. At least when I look at the numbers that you picked up independently, it seems to be in line with the structure. But again, this is in the purview of the deputy governor, so we'll allow him to do that. And payments to contractors have been suspended. Not really. I think the only delay that payments to contractors The only period that we had delays was on the transition between the Zimbabwean dollar to the ZiG, where the government systems had to be upgraded to change from ZWL to the ZiG. That was the only delay, but government continues to pay its contractors the same way it continues to collect taxes. I mentioned yesterday that we're running on a quasi-cash budgeting process, so it's almost money in, money out. So there hasn't been a period where government is collecting taxes and is holding a whole bunch of money in a reserve and then just bullet payments to contractors. That is not government process as it is. And then on consensus building and participation, again, this has to go two ways. The Ministry of Finance, even the Reserve Bank, have actually gone, I think, a few extra miles in trying to make sure that we can engage as much as possible. We engage with as many stakeholders as possible, critics as well, but constructive critics. Sometimes you'll find that people will criticize just for the sake of criticism and no solutions proffered. All the issues outlined and the problems are known to analysts, economists, and government as well. But I think at the end of the day, what matters more are the solutions that Kudzai mentioned that, you will have a list of solutions later on how maybe we can fix some of these things. So in these discussions, we appreciate a lot of the feedback and the critique, the pain points, and where there's information gaps, we can fill that in so that we can actually sit down together and come up with a composite solution that assists government or the public sector to come out with solutions that can make the private sector thrive. You see, Mr. Sibanda, we want the private sector to make millions and billions so that we can collect millions and billions. There's actually no upside in constraining private businesses from making money when that is the tax base that we collect from. So it is fully understood that we need to have a thriving private sector. In fact, in the strategy in both NDS 1 and NDS 2, it is His Excellency's vision that we have a private sector-led economy. What we've done over the past 5 years is set a template that indeed it can be done. Our Zimbabweans can do their roads, they can build dams, they can farm and feed the nation. You can have a robust financial and capital markets. We can get our currency stable. This is the template that government is setting, but the expectation is that the private sector should now come in and go full speed ahead because they will always move faster than government. For a decision to take, to reach fruition, sometimes, in our bureaucratic spaces takes a bit of time, but if some of these programs are delegated to the private sector, you become more efficient, more profitable, and can have a wider footprint. So that is our desire. And on the issue of bank charges, I 100% agree with Kudzai Sharara, and I don't know what RBZ is going to do about this. Right now, we're still saying, let's engage, let's engage. I've said Rapindra, no politician, but I'm saying this one, I don't know. We'll leave it to the monetary authorities because it is still sitting with you, but I agree with you on the issue of bank charges. But the clock is ticking on this issue of bank charges. Let us deal with it. Time spent with suppliers negotiating acceptance of ZiG seems to be a problem that is consuming your suppliers, your manufacturers. And I will say, in any reform agenda, you'll always have three types of people. The first type is, a reform comes in or an SI comes in, they'll quickly comply because, they are fully compliant to the law, they respect the law. Good law, bad law, they'll just comply. That's the first group of people. Second group of people in any reform agenda is, they're slow to catch up. They want to understand if it's a bad policy, then they want to engage and make sure that it's refined, or they need to take time to understand. And then there's a third group who, no matter how good the policy is, how good the law is, they just won't comply. In any reform agenda, you'll have these three types of people. And you will find that even in industry right now, for those who want ZIG to work, it's been working. For those who don't want it to work, or it seems like there's confusion, there is a bit of confusion. For those who don't want it to work, it's not working. Because you have those three people.
Thank you.
I thank you,
Thank you, Deputy Minister, for the comprehensive response. My time is running out, but I think I need to give a chance to the Deputy Governor. There's a question that I had in mind, but I still have to ask it. At least for the Minister yesterday, we had another engagement, so many questions were asked. As I get to ask my questions, I want to tell you there's a small theory that I'm developing. It's called a non-existent pothole theory. You know what has happened to me is one of the roads before it was refurbished, there was a big pothole that developed there. And unfortunately, I hit it and I had a double puncture. I had to call in the cover guys to pick up the vehicle for me. Then, fortunately, then the pothole got fixed. But in my mind, that pothole still exists. Whenever I pass through that place, I avoid it, I swerve. I'm not sure if I'm the only one. Anyone who's experienced the same? So my theory has been validated. So what I'm then saying is the confidence issue in the market. We would all want the ZIG to work, but in the past we have been banned. We still have the scars. What are you doing as the Reserve Bank to create that confidence and also to exercise the ghosts of the past? Thank you.
Unfortunately, the Reserve Bank doesn't fix potholes. But, colleagues, let me be very clear. If you look at the way in which ZIG is structured, being a structured currency, and if you look at the approach to the market that the Reserve Bank has taken, with the support of government. In fact, sometimes I think we forget to give credit where it is due. A couple of years ago, His Excellency the President, in his wisdom, instructed the Reserve Bank to retain part of the royalties that had been by law be given to the Reserve Bank to keep on behalf of the nation. And he instructed that it should be kept in physical form. That, ladies and gentlemen, gave birth to the ZIG today. It enabled the Reserve Bank to accumulate the reserves that it had from the beginning. So let me get back to your theory. The idea that we have a currency fully anchored and structured around our gold reserves or reserves from other minerals that have been turned into gold for storage purposes means right there we have a huge difference between the reforms of yesteryear and the reforms today. Secondly, assurances have been given, both visually and from an analytical perspective, that whatever the value of the ZIG, sorry, let me say that again. Wherever the value of the ZIG goes, it will be determined and anchored in the reserves that we have. I think just to update you, Honorable Minister, our basket of reserves has gone up to 380. So it's growing, and it's growing very fast. The idea is that we have to have a minimum level of reserves to be comfortable. And we are building towards that very, very quickly. Yes, if you extrapolate the numbers, you might find that it will take us a very long time. But we believe that there will be momentum that is going to be built that will propel the acceleration of accumulation to happen. I want to say something about the issue of consensus. Colleagues, we at the Reserve Bank were very deliberate about putting together the ZIG. I say this because I want to try and build that confidence. that trust. The consultations for ZIG were never ever going to be made public directly, but these were done. They were even done with external partners as well. But when ZIG was introduced, they said exactly the same thing that Mr. Sibanda said, that there was no consultation. We woke up and there was ZIG. But all of your associations were consulted, but they were not told what those consultations were about, which is what, as it should be. A currency is a sensitive matter that once we publicize that, economic agents take positions and nullify all of the tenets that we want to see take hold within the monetary policy framework. So consultations indeed were done. And even people who were consulted directly, Deputy Minister, you remember we had a discussion with a consultant. That consultant, when we went to the spring meetings of the IMF, said, no, but they didn't tell us. I said, yeah, what did you expect? That is the HE's prerogative, not ours, but you were consulted. So I just wanted to point that out. But let me quickly talk about the issue of, what was it? I think, Mrs. Sibanda, you raised the issue of the setting of the exchange rate. The minister was very clear about that. But let me give you the framework. Remember when the ZEG was introduced, the parallel market rate was between something like 30,000 to about 40,000. But on the day, on the 4th of April, the average parallel market rate, remember what I'm saying, parallel market rate was 33,980. That's the number we used. So, ladies and gentlemen, is that market determined? Right? So we use that. But after that, as the minister said, the Reserve Bank doesn't interfere. Yes, indeed, it doesn't interfere with the setting of the rate. That's done by the willing buyer, willing seller. But here is the ask. From this conference, if there are any ideas about how we can deepen the forex market, the willing buyer, willing seller, those would be welcome. And if the point is that the willing buyer, willing seller market is shallow, then yes, the point is taken. But otherwise, the Reserve Bank doesn't interfere with the setting of the exchange rate.
Thank you, Deputy Governor, for the reassurance. I'm afraid we're running out of time. This session maybe would have required the full day, but we still have other activities that we need to attend to. I really need to appreciate your coming here to be with us. You have enlightened us as accountants. You know, one thing that I know about CAs, unfortunately, the market doesn't fully understand what we can do. We tend to be consulted in areas that are not within our space. I'll give you an example. In my village, because they know that I'm a chartered accountant, they assume I know everything. I'm neither a farmer nor a vet doctor, but when I go there, I'm asked about cattle diseases. I have to bear an answer. But thank you so much. I'm sure we are very much enlightened. Members, if you've got some questions or suggestions, I suggest maybe the Deputy Governor, Deputy Minister, and our economists are still around. Please, let's find some time to interact, share ideas. And I think as ICAS, we also have a platform where we can share our suggestions to the authorities. They are more than willing and ready to welcome us. So now I think I'll just give less than a minute to each of the presenters in terms of your final words, because I think final words are very important. They tend to be the most important sometimes. Thank you.
Moderator, if you'll allow Kudzi Sharara just to share some of the solutions publicly. It is important that we hear that. I'm sure we can get an extra 5 minutes or so. Madam President, I hope I'm not interfering too much. She has allowed it. The President has allowed.
I'm not sure whether I'm lucky or I'm being put on the spot. I just want to talk, there's just in response to what the Deputy Governor said in terms of, I know that the Reserve Bank is not interfering with the exchange rate. However, there is confusion within the banking sector. I was in one meeting with some executives, and two bankers were invited, and they insisted that you can only sell foreign currency at a 5% margin of the official exchange rate. And one government official who was there said, no, there is no such thing as an official exchange rate. What is on the website of the RBZ is just an indicator. But the bankers were insisting that you can only put 5% on the margin. However, I think what the RBZ, you can correct me, said is that if you buy foreign currency, for example, from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, you can put a 5% margin, or 2.5%, depending on. And then if you buy from another exporter, you can put a 5% margin on what the exporter is selling at, not necessarily on the exchange rate that is on the website. So I think maybe you need to engage the bankers, the treasury guys, to work on that, because there is actually confusion. If I go to my bank and say I've got foreign currency at 16, they will say, no, we can't take it because the law says you have to put a 5% margin on the official exchange rate, and yet there's no official exchange rate. So that's maybe one intervention that needs to be sorted. And also for the government, I know you have said you want to make QPDs, 50% of the QPDs, which I highlighted earlier, that they might not be enough to encourage the use of ZiG. I think what is needed is to encourage wider adoption of the ZiG by creating more use cases. For example, you can say maybe payee should now be paid in ZiG. There are many other areas that you can look at that can be paid in ZiG. And then also maybe to the audience, I have heard a lot of people saying government is not accepting its own money. One thing that we are missing is that if government accepts ZiG, we must also accept that government will come back and pay you for what services you are providing to it in ZiG as well, because that's what you are giving them. But what needs to be done, for example, to avoid the situation that I was talking about, where suppliers were paid $20 million US, and then we start to see some movements. What needs to be done is probably now from the Reserve Bank side to come up with instruments, more than, I know they are using the NNCDs, which might not be enough. Maybe you need to come up with more instruments that these guys who are getting paid and they've got excess or savings that they are looking for a home for, they can then invest in those instruments. Right now, that's why you're seeing the stock market is going up. Imagine a counter, the biggest counter on the stock market, for example, Delta, in 1 month it goes up by 100%. I don't think it's sustainable. As much as investors can be happy, but I don't think it's sustainable. So we need to create more instruments where investors can put their money. I think for now, I can share later on some of the...
Chair, if you allow me, can I just make comment? I think you're absolutely spot on, Mr. Sharara. I mean, yes, indeed, there has been a lot of discounting, and this is also part of what you were saying of TBs. And one of the biggest problems is that, yes, once issued and so on, it becomes private property, and a person is free to do whatever they want. But the idea, is to find a mechanism in which to try and discourage, discounting, because it immediately becomes money. And once it becomes money, what tends to happen, it increases the money supply. And that puts pressure on the exchange rate. So we're looking at that, but at the same time, we're looking at exactly what you're talking about, to bring in instruments that mop up liquidity, that are not only NNCDs, but also in the process, restructure NNCDs to be able to be a functional and efficient way of mopping up liquidity. Lastly, Chair, in terms of the Forex market, one of the things that I don't know, and I've been bouncing it off different groups, is whether it makes sense to have a an electronic forex trading platform. That will deal with some of the misunderstandings that are there in the market. So thank you for indulging.
Thank you so much. Ms. Charara still has another one brilliant idea to.
Yeah, one more.
give to Mr.
So, there's been issues. I remember the Reserve Bank speaking to the governor, and he said, we have done well in terms of raising awareness about the ZIG. And I said, but it's not there, it's not out there. And then later on, he discovered that the money was sitting with banks and no one was withdrawing. This other day, I went into my bank and I said, okay, let me withdraw some ZIG. There's no queue and the ZIG is there. But before I withdrew, I then said, no, if I take these 10 ZIG, the moment I walk out of that door, this 10 ZIG is now discounted by almost 40%, because it's now, instead of 70 cents, it's now 50 cents. So you will not see people withdrawing it, because they know immediately when they go to the Kombi, they go to the Tumbare Msika, it's already discounted. So we need to find a way of giving it back its value, because no one will withdraw it when you lose value the moment you walk out of the door. It's like you're buying a car, when you're out there, the value has already changed. So I think we need to work on that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can see we are all eager to be continuing saying something, but I think we've run out of time. I still don't want to get my letter of good standing next year when I apply to ICAS, so I have to respect the time limits. Thank you so much for your participation, the contributions that you have made. We have all been so much enlightened, and like I said before, those with additional questions, I think we still have a channel of sending off to the Deputy Government Minister. Thank you so much for appreciate it.
Loyalty? Then look no further than Premier Corporate Gifts. The business was founded in 2016 with a passion for excellence in the promotional products and corporate gifting industry. We're one of the leading, fast-growing, and most innovative companies in the corporate gifting space. We pride ourselves on providing trendy and unique corporate gifts, promotional materials, corporate wear, and banners. But we're not just about selling products. We're customer-centric. We listen to our customers' needs and source the perfect items, or even customize them to your exact specifications. Our team is dedicated to exceeding your expectation. We achieve this by keeping a stock of high-quality products from preferred international suppliers. Whether you need executive gift set, power bank notebooks, metal pens, stylish water bottles, or classic promotional items, we have something to fit every budget and occasion. Our commitment to sourcing unique products allows us to offer exceptionally fast and efficient delivery times. This ensures you get your gifts on time, every time. At Premier Corporate Gifts, we don't just deliver products, we deliver exceptional experiences. We want to excite and wow our clients, just like these. Our dedication to quality and innovation has earned us the trust of leading brands like ZB, MMCZ, Plascon, AFC, EY, First Capital, Net1, CMAS, KPMG, PPC, ICAS, PRAS, UNDP, Stanbic, and many more blue chip brands. Ready to create lasting memories and strengthen your brand? Contact us today for a customized quote. We look forward to partnering with you.
Thank you. That was a word from our sponsors, Premier Corporate Gifts. Ladies and gentlemen, may we have a round of applause for our panelists. Some of us were not the best in economics class. Those who were with me are the likes of Kombo and the deputy, the junior vice president. They know it was not one of my best and favorite, but I had a a free lecture today. I'm sure I'll be a much better economic student going forward so that I can participate. All right. We are behind schedule in terms of our time, so in terms of the tea break, we will try to grab our cups and we come back and have our coffee whilst we are in here. But on this slot, may we kindly ask all the members who are members of staff with the minstrel file have a round of applause as she comes to take the podium.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony, for this opportunity. Let me recognize our Deputy Minister, our Deputy Governor, and all the dignitaries. I'll stand on existing protocol and all protocols observed. Good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Afreximbank's mandate is to promote both intra and African trade. Through the current strategic plan, Afreximbank Group is rolling out various programs focused on expanding intra-African trade and accelerating the continent's long-term industrialization and economic transformation. Let me highlight some of the products and solutions offering that the Afreximbank Group has to offer to our member states, who also include Zimbabwe. In order to ease the doing of business on the continent and to also cater for our exporters and importers, Afreximbank launched an Afreximbank Africa Collaboration Transit Guarantee Scheme program, and this provides a technology-enabled transit guarantee that facilitates the seamless movement of goods and across multiple borders, significantly reducing the costs of doing that business, as well as time associated with transit bonds and streamlining export and import processes. A pilot project has already been launched in the COMESA region and has started to yield results. Under this arrangement, Afreximbank serves as the regional transit guarantee, enabling goods to move across borders under a single transit bond guarantee. We have also launched a Trader Club platform, and this platform is designed to help business easily identify potential suppliers or distributors across the continent, discover new markets, grow their business, and also access dedicated expert support, as well as regulatory information, and respond to new business opportunities. In a bid to address the issue of lack of trade-related information on the continent, Afreximbank, in collaboration with the Africa Union Commission and the AFCFTA Secretariat, established the biennial Intra-African Trade Fair. I'm sure most of you have received our pamphlets on the Intra-African Trade Fair. Our latest edition was held in November 2023 in Egypt, Cairo. The fourth edition is scheduled to be held between the 4th and 10th of September of 2025 in Algiers, Algeria. The trade fair brings together continental and global players to showcase and exhibit their goods and services, exploring business and investment opportunities on the continent. I urge you all to take advantage of this unique business platform that celebrates our entrepreneurship, innovation, diversity, as well as continental collaboration. We are also collaborating with strategic partners and member countries to facilitate the implementation of the Export Agriculture for Food Security initiative. And under this initiative, the bank aims at providing finance to increase production, processing, and intra-African trade on the agricultural products. This will enhance food security on the continent and allow our farmers and agribusiness to access expanded markets within the continent. Zimbabwe is also among the targeted countries given its vast resources as well as capacity. Afreximbank also strongly believes that industrial parks, export processing zones, and special economic zones are tools the continent can deploy in order to fast-track its industrialization agenda with a particular focus on light manufacturing and agro-processing. Under these two programs, we currently have a dedicated team on the ground in Zimbabwe working on available opportunities, and in the near to short time, expect Afreximbank to be making some significant announcements as deals are being consummated. And please do follow our social network handles on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and also on X for further updates on these developments. We have created the African Trade Facilitation Program, which provides trade confirmation services, trade confirmation guarantees, as well as irrevocable reimbursement undertakings. We also offer correspondent banking services to our local financial institutions through our AFPay products. This product was also launched to complement the gap that was left by the international banks when they started to de-risk from the continent. Afreximbank also supports the development of trade-enabling infrastructure such as energy supplies, transportation networks, and robust communication systems. We also have what we call the Project Preparation Facility Program, which aims at financing startups until they reach the bankable stage. Under this facility, we also do provide the needed patient capital as well as financing feasibility studies. This particularly is important to provide financial support to our local entrepreneurs and a boost to a largely informal economy, as well as to support our SMEs. Apart from lending, the Afreximbank also offers equity finance through one of our subsidiaries, the Fund for Export Development in Africa, dubbed FEDA. In recognition of the Gen Z that was earlier discussed, and also the realization that the arts industry and culture is the new currency of today, and also to create employment for our youth, Afreximbank has also launched a specific program under the Canex banner, and this is meant to support our creatives, that is our authors, our music industry, film industry, as well as fashion. I'm glad Edgars can also participate under this initiative. We also have the gastronomy industry under this banner. And our support comes in various ways. We do it through financing, as well as the Canex weekends and shows that we host. And this Canex initiative is a vibrant ecosystem that aims to connect creatives and investors from across Africa to create, learn, and earn together. Canex weekend for the year 2024 will be taking place again in Algiers, in Algeria, between the 16th and the 19th of October. And this will be the largest gathering of creatives on the global Africa continent. Last but not least, Afreximbank has also recently launched the Afreximbank Academy, which offers learning opportunities, particularly in the trade finance space and other various areas. Allow me to reiterate Afreximbank's unwavering support for the industrialization agendas of its member countries, including Zimbabwe, and the promotion of intra-regional trade with a solid balance sheet of approximately 40 billion US dollars, we are well equipped to support the transformation of Africa's trade. I hope both the private and public sector players will seize this opportunity to leverage our diverse facilitation and finance programs. I thank you.
A round of applause to Deborah as she takes her seat. So at this point, we would want to take a tea break. Like I said, let's just take this opportunity to go out, we grab a cup, we come back. We will try to push it within 5 to 7 minutes so that we can try and catch up. We are extremely behind schedule. We are extremely behind schedule. If we can move as fast as we can. Those who don't necessarily need to go and discuss the 312 bank charges.
BZ, you're very kind. I know a good friend of mine, Tapua, he managed to win something today. I think it's been a while since he had won something. All right. We need to quickly move and move with speed. Our next presenter is a young man. Right. He's going to talk to us about the future of the profession and expert perspective. Our presenter is Mr. Tinashe Kamangira. Tinashe is the 2024 president for the Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand. He was born in Zimbabwe before migrating to Australia in 2002. He has more than 16 years experience in accounting, taxation, and business advisory. Previously, he has worked in the private advisory practice for Grant Thornton in Perth and also in Grant Thornton, Sweden. He is currently a director at Deloitte Australia, and he has been involved with the chartered accountants in various roles, including serving as young CA on the young CA panel, marking exams, facilitating the chartered accountants program, and as a member of the Western Australia Regional Council. Tinashe holds a Bachelor of Commerce with majors in accounting and finance from Cotton University of Technology in Perth. He also holds a postgraduate certificate in information systems and information technology, and he is a graduate of the Australian Institute of Directors. A round of applause as we welcome Tinashe to take up the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you can you hear me okay? Yep, good, thank you. Good morning. It's a great privilege to be here, and thank you for that very, very warm welcome. I haven't been in Zimbabwe for some time, Ndagara overseas for some time, so apologies if I haven't done the protocols correctly, but thank you very much to Madam President, the Presidium, the Council, CEO, and of course the members for having me here. I spent a few days now and I've quite enjoyed it. So the AGM the other day was very interesting. Hats off to William and Madam President for taking some difficult questions. But what's also very interesting is the same questions members in Australia ask are the same questions you were asking. Should we reduce our membership fees? Why are we joining with ACCA? It's quite interesting because the same themes are what I get as a person in Australia. Now, I was reflecting on Norma, who's just left, in terms of wearing a suit. So I'm a millennial who wears a suit, but I think that's really because in Australia, most of our members, or most of the people I deal with, are baby boomers. I'm here to talk a little bit about the future of the profession. And I'm going to disappoint you a little bit because, to be honest, I don't have any idea what the future of the profession looks like. I'm going to share a little bit about my personal background, my professional background, the role of accountants today, some cross-cultural differences that I've observed working in Australia, a little bit about technology. I don't think we'll have time for Q&A, but I'll be around to answer any questions. I know you said I'm very young, but I was born at Mbuyane Hospital 41 years ago. I'm very fortunate to have my parents here today, and also my brother. It's actually quite nostalgic for us to come as a family to Elephant Hills, because we came here in 1997 as a family, and I don't know if many of you remember this, but the hotel burnt down in the early 90s, and it was rebuilt, and it's still standing very strong. So it's actually very good to see how well it was built and how well it's been kept. Also looking at some of the sponsors. So Old Mutual and Zimbank. My father worked for Old Mutual and Zimbank for about 30 years. And I think it was quite good for him to reminisce with the new young bankers on Friday at the Bush dinner, talking about the old story of what banking used to be like. So just a bit about myself, because I'm conscious that most of you probably don't know much about me. So I went to school in Harare. I got to go to St. George's College. I have 3 brothers. Unfortunately, one of my brothers passed away. He was born with spinal bifida. And that had a profound impact on not just me, but my family over a period of time. But at that time, I didn't actually even recognize what impact having, a disease like that would have on people. My journey to becoming a chartered accountant is very different to all of you. So when I was in high school, I finished O-levels in 1999. And my pathway, I wanted to, join a firm, do articles when I finished high school. At the time, I think it was the Big Six. There was, I think, Coopers and Lybrand and Price Waterhouse hadn't merged yet. Arthur Andersen was still, around. But as I think the panel talked about earlier on, a lot of things changed in my last 2 years of high school. In 2000, I don't know if many of you remember, but in August 2000 was a massive devaluation of the dollar. It devalued by 30%. And I know you might not think that's a lot in today's current environment, but back then that was quite dramatic. And that really changed the trajectory of where I would take my career. That period was also very interesting in terms of technology. Do you remember Y2K? Do you remember how your video recorder wasn't going to work on the 1st of January? But that taught me a really important lesson about technology. And one of my favorite quotes about technology is that technology is a word that describes something that doesn't work yet. 1999 was also strange because I think my parents were convinced that it was the end of the world. Because we went to Kumusha to celebrate the new year. We went to Mount Darwin. But hence, things changed. So after high school, I ended up going to Australia. Thank you to Zimbank, because back then the RBZ was actually still giving money at the local exchange rate for studying overseas, which was very good. I didn't know much about Australia when I moved there, except that there was a book in 1964 called The Lucky Country. And Australia is the lucky country. The quote from the book that I love the most is, "Australia is a lucky country run mainly by second-rate people who share in its luck. It lives on the ideas, and although its people are ordinary and adaptable, most of its leaders lack curiosity." That has been very much my experience in Australia. It is a country that is built by migrants but sometimes they don't like migrants. In terms of my own career, I've had various challenges, but also various achievements. I reflect on my first 2 jobs. One was cleaning the art classrooms at the university I was working at, and the second one was working as a kitchen hand in one of the hotels. Here I am, a salad from Vinona, having to get these life lessons. But they taught me a lot of things, and one of those is resilience. It's really, really important to be resilient because you need to worry about only the things you can change. Never worry about the things you can't control, and just try to impact the things that you can. Australia's strict immigration policy actually made it very challenging for me to get a job after I finished university. You try to apply for a job at, I'm now at Deloitte. Computer says no because you're not a permanent resident. But I was very lucky to get a job at a very small accounting firm who didn't bother doing any checks around permanent residents. But that job was good because I got to work. They had lots of businesses that are in the agribusiness sector in Australia. It was quite interesting watching how they do farming. You'll get large farms that are literally run by mum and dad. They bring in seasonal workers, but they produce a massive amount of crops. After my chartered accounting, which I did at this small firm, I then decided to join Grant Thornton. And it's good to see that they were the former auditors and doing this on a pro bono basis. I also became the first non-Anglo-Saxon chair in sort of the Western Australian team, which is challenging, but also a really good opportunity for me. It was a good opportunity because sometimes we get into roles like this, not for ourselves, but really for the future. For our children, for our friends, to showcase that if we strive, we can actually achieve things that some of us never dreamed of being able to achieve. In terms of chartered accountants in Australia, what's interesting is they're actually 10 years younger than ICAS. In terms of Australia, the big 4 accounting firms will audit, the largest ASX-listed companies. One trend that is interesting, though, is Deloitte only audits 3 companies in the ASX 200, because Deloitte has made the decision to provide consulting and advisory services rather than audit services. So in Australia, in terms of audit, it is actually only the big 3. In 2013, Australia and New Zealand decided to merge after the members decided to vote for it. That's had a massive impact on our profession in Australia and New Zealand. But today, I just want to quickly talk about the evolving role of accountants. According to a global survey, 75% of accountants believe that their roles will significantly be different in the next 5 years. Technology has rapidly transformed our profession. Accountants have embraced new software, AI, which have enhanced efficiency and effectiveness. But despite this, a lot of people think that accountants won't have jobs in the future. But if you think about the professions, law, engineering, medicine, and others, accounting is the one that has probably been the most quick and agile to move with new technology. When I look back to the 90s and 2000s, I see huge improvements in the capability and capacity of not just technology, but the skill set of the accountants who use it. Better technology means you must know how to use that technology, and you must be able to complement technology and help others use it. I work in tax, and there was a lot of rote work that we used to do in preparing tax returns. We've seen lots of changes in software and technology that make this task much faster and much more accurate. Think about Lotus Notes. Think about the change to Outlook, Windows, Excel. Think about the outage that happened yesterday that impacted pretty much every single business across the world. I had a few people, like Norma had said, that actually were in the office in Australia yesterday, and half of them had to leave at lunchtime because they couldn't access their systems. We must be able to tell the story behind the numbers. We must be communicators and connectors. We must help business navigate challenges using this technology. We still need human minds to make judgments, to assess and analyze and verify, but also to sense check. I'm not a data-driven person, but I'm a data-influenced person. There's a subtle difference, but as leaders, you need to be able to make judgments at times with limited information, incomplete data. If you do have to wait for complete data, quite often that competitive advantage will disappear. Every area of business and the community needs accountants. In Australia, we're driving a new campaign to show the public the wide range of careers that accountants can pursue. We are reframing the conversation with the language and values of the next generation. We talk about financial sleuths rather than auditors, about financial crime fighters rather than forensic accountants, business gurus rather than management consultants, and public guardians rather than government accountants. Some cross-cultural differences that I've reflected on between Australia and New Zealand. I was talking to Chipo, who presented just yesterday, and I think we both agree that it is much harder to become a chartered accountant in Zimbabwe than it is in Australia. In fact, I don't even know if I would have been able to qualify here. But the one thing I do notice, though, is after about 3 to 5 years of experience, a chartered accountant in Australia or New Zealand has much broader world experience. That is something for the employers here to reflect on. Make sure your trainees have relevant work experience. Don't just give them the boring jobs. Make sure you train them so that they learn about the nuances, because we're competing on a global scale for talent. Remember, good staff leave bad employers. Another difference I noticed was at the AGM. I think it was Anna who asked a question about having 52-48 gender intake. Sorry, Anna, but that is actually not enough to change the dial. In Australia and New Zealand, we have had about 52% women joining our program for the last 15 years. But the average length of membership for women in Australia is 24 years, but it is 36 years for men. So we need to do more to bring women into our profession, but we need to do even more to keep them in the profession. Varume, it actually starts with us. The overwhelming burden of caring responsibilities rests with women. We need to be more inclusive in the way we think about work and the way we structure training. I work 4 days a week because on one of the days, I'm with my 2 boys, taking them to swimming lessons, changing nappies, and doing all the other things. So make sure you go to the sports days for your kids, and make sure your staff also know about this. It's not about gender balance, it's about gender equity. I've recently spent a bit of time in Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. I hadn't been there for about 10 years, but the geopolitical changes in the region have had a profound impact on our profession. Some of the trends that they're seeing in Asia are similar to what we've seen here in Zimbabwe. Accountants are moving in droves from places like Malaysia to Singapore, like when they were going to South Africa, the UK, and Australia. But many are going back to Asia. My brother currently works for a US company, but is based in Zimbabwe at the moment. I'm not sure if he's even here. I don't know if he went to that nightclub where an unnamed FD was DJing. But it's quite interesting that he's choosing to probably stay in Zimbabwe. Many businesses are moving their operations from places like Hong Kong to Singapore. My observation of Hong Kong was that In so many ways, the old colonial structures have become shackles to the way of life and the economy in Hong Kong. They're almost trapped in this old British world trying to join the Chinese mainland. I think that's something for us to reflect on in Zimbabwe. When I go to places like Malaysia, they're not as impacted by the old British world. They're forging their own path. That's a huge opportunity for us here. I look at some of the changes that have happened with, say, Deloitte in Zimbabwe, with management buyouts. This is also happening in China. Local accountants are deciding to set up their own firms rather than continue to work with some of the global firms. But if I'm being honest, even though that there is a shift of capital from east to west, from west to east, there is still a lack of trust in some of these local organizations and institutions. Trust in capital markets is one of the bedrocks of our profession, and we need to maintain this vigorously. Technology is very much transforming our industry. Look at AI. How many of you use chatbots like ChatGPT? Can I get a... If you don't, I encourage you to do so. These tools are really good at getting you a first draft. Quite often, if I've come from a meeting, I'll type in some notes into ChatGPT, and when I get back into the office, it's drafted me a really good summary. Or if I'm going to a new client, I'll ask it questions like, what sort of questions would I ask a person in this particular industry? It's not always great at the moment, but remember, these tools are the worst they'll ever be right now. They'll only get better. Now, I know we don't have too much time, so I'll just quickly skip to two more themes. One is the importance of leadership. Accountants in business are more often like counselors and coaches than anything else. In Australia, many startups and medium to sized businesses have benefited from the rise of the virtual CFO. There's a business opportunity in Zimbabwe for people to be virtual CFOs. Your great language skills and ability to communicate, to tell a story, to show compassion and excitement about what you do and bring others along is so important. These are what we call enterprise skills. In Australia, we're changing our Chartered Accountants program because the modern accountant needs these enterprise skills. Technical skills are a given. Leadership and mentorship are critical to our profession. Good leaders inspire, motivate, and guide their teams to success. Some other trends that I reflect on from yesterday are climate-related disclosures. New Zealand has been a world leader in passing legislation, standards, and requiring large listed companies to disclose their financial impacts, their climate impacts. Norma mentioned Gen Z. I have some people in my team that won't work for certain clients. They will say they don't want to work for an oil and gas company. That is the changing nature of the industry we're in. In Australia, if you're exposed to the coal industry, the banks won't give you a loan. Non-financial reporting is only going to increase around the world. Regulators and governments are seeking to get a grip on addressing climate change. And as accountants, we are central to this, given our reporting and assurance expertise. There's also a lot of talk about nature-related disclosures. Did you know that 60% of coffee varieties are in danger of extinction due to a combination of climate change, disease, and deforestation? Thinking about the changing world, Australia publishes the gross income and tax paid of any company that turns over 100 million. Consumers are now boycotting companies that they don't think pay enough tax. Another area to think about for the future is cybersecurity. Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand was actually hacked a few years ago. The incident focuses and sharpens the mind. Think about that change yesterday when CrowdStrike deployed that system that impacted all Microsoft systems. Chartered accountants are excellent at evaluating risks, and this skill also translates into cybersecurity. But looking ahead, the future of accounting is both exciting and challenging. We're likely to see even more integration of technology, increased focus on sustainability, and a greater impact or emphasis on soft skills. The only constant in our profession is going to be change. In closing, you've heard me reference my journey from Zimbabwe to Australia. I've been very lucky. Yes, ndakakomborerwa. But for young members, remember, the harder you work, the luckier you'll become. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. So, keep working, keep striving, keep moving, keep growing, keep learning. And if you fall down 7 times, get up 8. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I am really honestly humbled. Since I became president in Australia, I've had a lot of support from the Zimbabwean community. And yes, I haven't responded to every message yet, but I will in time. My term ends at the end of the year. My only advice to the incoming president is when you become president, you'll have no shortage of people to advise you. But do the best you can, forge your own path, but most of all, enjoy it. Thank you, Ndatenda Siyabonga. Once again, thank you for having me at the conference. I'll be around to answer any questions because we don't have a time for a Q&A, but I won't be doing any bungee jumping. Take care, but keep pushing the boundaries of our profession. Thank you.
Another round of applause to Tinashe. Let me call upon the unnamed DJ to come in front and make a presentation. He knows himself. Thank you, Tipe. So he will come and make a presentation for the gift. Oh, you want to say something? You can greet them.
Good morning.
Yeah. And the
Intelligent technologies simplify your journey to the Do you want to
right. Michael, Mr. Spanda, and Mr. Sharara to come in front as well. May you come in front. DJ, you haven't finished? You need to do another presentation. Yeah. Right. I'm not seeing Mr. Sharara. He's outside, isn't he? All right. Thank you, Mr. Spanda, for the insights that you provided. We are really grateful. Now you can take your seat, sir. You know, he's my classmate. So we know each other from a while ago. I knew him before. I don't know where this whole DJing came from. Used to be very serious with yeah. Just a quick announcement for those who have registered for boat cruise. You are required to go downstairs before 1 o'clock for the scanning of your IDs. If your ID hasn't been scanned, you will not be allowed to board the boat. So we go to the World Horizons desk and we get the formalities done. Our next presentation is on the legal update and its implications on the business. And our presenter is none other than Mr. God Knows Office of HNP Attorneys. He is a chartered accountant, a lawyer, and better known as GK, including in the Gulf circles. He holds a number of positions. He's the managing partner for Office and Partners, the commercial attorneys. He's a commercial arbitrator, the chairman for Dawn Properties Consultancy, Private Limited. He's a non-executive director for companies for close to 20 years now. And prior to joining the legal profession, he worked in commerce and industry for close to 20 years, as well in audit, accounting, and finance, as well as human resources. May we give a round of applause to Mr. Office as he comes to take up the podium.
Thank you very much. Is it good morning or it's good afternoon now? It's afternoon. Okay. Thank you. I'm sure you can hear me. But what I'm not sure of is whether you can see me. Because on height, I know I'm competing with the podium. But yeah, because I'm compact. So, yeah. Okay. I wish to make a few acknowledgements or recognitions. When I appear in court, I introduce myself because that's the standard in the profession. You say, if it pleases this honorable court, if it's the male judge, you say, my lord. If it's a female judge, you say, my lady. So you say, if it pleases this honorable court, my lord, my name is G. Office, appearing for the applicant or the respondent, the plaintiff or the defendant. I know I'm not in a courtroom, but if it pleases you, let me acknowledge the presence of the following. The Honorable Deputy Minister is around, but not in this room. I also wish to acknowledge the Presidium, that is Mrs. Manyara Chikunduru, the Senior VP, Mr. Bryce Musendo, Junior VP, Mr. Emmanuel Mudefi, past ICAS presidents here present. I think Vuli is around. I saw him yesterday and today. Emilia Chisango, Tapiwa Chizana, and Davson Charamba. Then I also wish to recognize the ICAS Secretariat led by the CEO, William. I work very closely with them on certain legal issues affecting the CA or the Institute. And then I also wish to acknowledge the presence of the speakers who spoke before me. then members of the CA profession. I also wish to acknowledge the presence of people from my second profession, that the learned profession. The Deputy Minister is a member of the learned profession. And also, I don't know if she's in this room, Felicit, the registrar. She's a legal practitioner now. I did the privilege of registering in the High Court. And last but not least, I wish to acknowledge the presence of many golfers in this room. I know there are games planned for this afternoon, so I will try to make my presentation very short. Initially, I was allocated 1 hour, but things moved in a different direction, so I'll try to be as quick as I can the way we handle agent chamber applications. So that shouldn't be a problem for me. I wish to clarify something because I've been asked many times that I'm a CA who has joined the legal profession, whether I have abandoned the profession or I don't know, my brother who spoke before me, whether this says something about the future of the profession. I can tell you I have not abandoned the profession. It's just consolidation. Yeah, and in my practice of commercial law, it's giving me some advantages. So I'm still with you, my colleagues. I've also been asked whether I'm the first CA to start a law firm in Zimbabwe. I don't have that answer yet, but I think most likely I am, but I don't have the answer. Now I move on to my presentation on legal updates and implications on business. Yeah, my profile has been talked about. I'm going to give a very quick overview on laws, including recent changes and the implications or effects of those laws or changes on business. My view is that to remain relevant, one needs to understand the laws that are relevant to the business and also to seek relevant legal solutions. Knowing the law, one has to take advantage of legally permissible or allowed opportunities, but there's also need to manage legal and compliance risk. So that's the summary of it in terms of what I think one needs to do to remain relevant. Just a brief about commercial legal services, because I got many inquiries to say commercial legal services or commercial law, what does it cover? Basically, commercial legal services are services meant to support business or commercial transactions. And some of the services cover commercial contracts, legal advisory services on those commercial transactions, investment laws, company or corporate law, conveyancing, which is the transfer of immovable properties, tax law. For tax law, many accountants are aware because accountants are also tax consultants. There's notary public as part of commercial law, there's intellectual property law, there's commercial litigation. So that's just a summary about commercial legal services. Then the law as it affects business. I think it's important to understand the external forces that do affect business. There's this model, I've read about it and I've applied it. Some of the factors that do affect a business, the external factors, we have political factors, we have economic factors, we have social factors, technological, environmental, and the laws themselves right at the bottom. But if you look at all the factors right above the legal factor, all of them, they feed into laws. For example, there are political decisions, programs, which politicians will be pushing for, economic programs, social programs, and then changes in technology, the environmental issues, EMA coming in there. So these external factors, they do have a bearing on how business is conducted. So it's very, very important for executive or business people to be familiar with the external factors, especially how they do affect their business, because they have a bearing on the laws of the country. Yeah, just briefly, the Deputy Minister explained a lot about government programs and so on, and then in a way I think he touched on how the laws come in. There was a discussion about the number of statutory instruments. Was it 115 for this year so far? And then I think 200 for last year. So the Deputy Minister, so I won't bore you with the details there. Now, what I think is very important, which affects a lot of businesses and the work of an accountant, is government priorities and programs. Like the Deputy Minister explained, obviously, like any government, there are always plans and intentions to grow the economy. He spoke about the growth rate of, was it 8.5%, 6%, and so on. So usually government will be working on growing the economy. Then in the Zimbabwean case, a lot around the stabilization of the exchange rate. So many laws, so many statutory instruments around that. Then the reduction of inflation. There's a link, in my view, between the government's fight to contain or arrest inflation and the stabilization of the exchange rate. Then also, as a priority area, the government is trying to widen collections. So around these areas, you see there have been many changes in laws, and I also think that there will be many changes to come around these areas. Just examples of laws that have impacted business. We have current laws. I'll give some details in a few moments. But current laws targeted at stabilizing the exchange rate to contain inflation. Then the anti-money laundering laws. The FIU, as you are aware, they are quite active around this area. Then also important laws that change a lot are exchange control laws. I'll touch on them. Then tax laws, obviously. Current laws, they've come through statutory instruments, various statutory instruments. I'm happy the Deputy Minister said that they are trying to make sure there's predictability in the economy and so on. But a lot of statutory instruments have come through. Then most of these statutory instruments or laws around currency, they are around which currency to use. They are around the issue of exchange rate, particularly the use of the official exchange rate. Yeah, so all that has implications on business, and I will explain the implications in a few moments because I summarized them. The effects in changes in current laws, pricing of goods and services. It is not a secret that in the past, there has been a lot of laws, particularly statutory instruments, where businesses are required to charge goods and services at the official exchange rate. Then implications also of the movements in the exchange rate on inflation and preservation of value. Preservation of value, it's a major issue. In the past, I know when people were paid in local currency where the exchange rate was moving very fast, they didn't want to keep the the local currency in the account, so in order to preserve value, they had to do something. So this affects the work of an accountant, this affects business. Then settlement of obligations, USD versus local currency. So the laws that have been passed on currency or changes in those laws, they have a bearing on settlement of obligations. I'm sure you're aware of the one-to-one issue, or even some suppliers saying, no, you can only pay us in this currency instead of the other for them to preserve value. Increasingly, you also see suppliers requesting or demanding to be paid in cash. A lot is happening, especially in the property industry, where sale of immovable properties involved. For example, sellers, they say instead of transferring into my account, is it possible to be paid in cash? Then we also see that when clients come, they insist that there should be provisions in contracts on currency risk. Yeah. Then financial reporting, it's a big one. Which reporting currency to use, which exchange rate to use. I remember in 2022, I was engaged by the Public Accountants and Auditors Board to prepare a legal opinion on the exchange rate to use for reporting. And I gave them the report. Unfortunately, it wasn't what they wished for, but I did it in terms of the law. Yeah. Then also internal reporting, it's about which currency to use, which exchange rate to use. Then ZIMRA, obviously, as various announcements or pronouncements on currency, you pay 50% or in USD or in ZIG, or you pay in the currency in which you traded, whatever. So these are some of the implications coming through changes in laws. Yeah. Effects of currency on pricing and reporting. Pricing, I've already talked about it. Financial and management reporting, I've said. But very significant on financial reporting is that movements in exchange rates or changes in currency and things like that, they can make it very difficult to have comparatives. And as you know, in business, financial information is very important for decision making. So where exchange rates have moved, at times comparatives may not make that much sense. Yeah, so again, the work of an accountant is affected. There are compliance issues in there. Section 184 of the Companies and Other Business Act speaks to financial statements that give a true and fair view, but which comply with IFRS. So it's a requirement which companies and accountants have to comply with. I wish to move very quickly. Anti-money laundering laws. I won't say much about this because I'm sure many of you have been trained by the FIU. But I know the FIU has been making some awareness, conducting some training, and there are some reporting requirements on suspicious transactions, cash transactions, and also for business to carry out KYC on their clients. There's also the asset forfeiture. There's a big case which was decided recently by the Supreme Court. I just put it there so that if you want, you can read more about it. I will request that this presentation be shared with you in case you want to refer to it later on. Then exchange controls. Those are the main exchange control laws. The Exchange Control Act itself, there are regulations of 1996. Then you also have got circulars and directives from the Reserve Bank. These also change a lot, and you may want to always consult with your bank or your lawyers. Yeah, but they have a bearing on the movement of funds and so on. Then The Finance Act. The Finance Act is a very important act. Each time the national budget is approved or there's a review, midterm review, you normally find the changes coming through the Finance Act. So I recommend that, from time to time, you go through the Finance Act. It's not a very long act. You can easily relate with it. So the Finance Act is quite important. I know those who do tax, soon after the national budget or the review, they always consult the Finance Act. But I think any one of you can quickly go through and familiarize with the provisions of the Finance Act. Some of the changes that came through the Finance Act, number 13 of 2023, after the national budget of last year, several amendments were made to tax laws, the IMTT increase, introduction of the wealth tax. Then on the mining side, levy is introduced. Then there was also a special capital gains tax on entities acquiring mining rights in Zimbabwe. And this special capital gains tax was backdated to 10 years before 2024. Some updates. There's a lot of technological advancement happening in the legal profession. Maybe it's the next slide. I'll go back to this one. The digitalization. The Judicial Service Commission has introduced what is called an integrated electronic case management system at superior courts, such as the High Court, the Supreme Court, and the Constitutional Court. And that digitalization program is now being extended to lower courts, such as the magistrates' courts. The advantages about this system is that it allows for online filing of court papers. And then the system also is being used to conduct virtual hearings. So instead of lawyers going to court physically, there's now the option of appearing virtually. There are still some connectivity problems, but that's being attended to. I personally find that system to be very convenient. Then the establishment of High Court Commercial Division. This is a division of the High Court which specializes in resolving commercial disputes. They are trying to make sure that commercial disputes are resolved as quickly as possible. The timelines and the rules are very strict. Just quickly, just to share with you some of the roadblocks which can be mounted by legal practitioners during litigation. Those are some of we call them special defenses or preliminary points. Indeed, we try as much as possible never to go to the merits of the case. So some of them, there's local standard. We can challenge that you have no right to be heard by the court or to participate in the litigation. You don't have a direct and substantial interest in the matter. Then there's prescription. Prescription is a very serious issue because if your claim or debt is more than 3 years old, then in terms of the Prescription Act, you lose the right to make that claim. So for you finance people, you need to always track your debtors and so on to make sure that you don't lose what is due to you on account of prescription. Then other defenses are non-compliance with court rules. The court has no jurisdiction. There's no cause of action, res judicata, less pendants, and so on. These are some of the roadblocks that we mount. One issue which was topical, I think, last year into this year, it's around fraud over title deeds. It's a serious issue, but what I can advise is that when you are acquiring immovable properties, just make sure you carry out proper due diligence, or you can ask your commercial lawyers to assist you with that. In analysis of the fraud, normally it's around use of fake IDs by those who say they are the sellers. But you also have a combination of fake IDs and fake title deeds, and then someone purports to sell. The purchaser pays, and at times the purchaser pays the purchase price before transfer is completed, and in the process loses out. So the issue around title deeds, it's a development which can also affect business and the work of an accountant. I'm happy that the government promised to take some corrective measures. Then some important laws, just quickly, the Constitution of Zimbabwe, the acts of parliaments and regulations, there are laws which are applicable to companies on governance and so on. Then there is the Companies and Other Business Entities Act, Chapter 2431 of 2020. I see in some documents or contracts, people still refer to the old Companies Act, Chapter 2403. Please take note that the old Companies Act 2403 was repealed by the new Companies Act. Then there are acts that apply to regulated entities. Shareholders agreement, very important in the event of disputes around shareholding and shareholder rights. Then articles and memo and articles of association. It's a very important document on governance of corporates. You'll be shocked that most people don't read their own articles of association. Yeah. Then the Register of Companies has got new forms based on the new act. The main ones which I wish to explain or talk about the CR6. The CR6 is the form that lists the directors of a company. It used to be called the CR14. Yeah. Then there's the CR11 now, which is the return of allotment when shares have been issued. Let me see whether I included those forms somewhere. Was I thought I had done so. If just quickly. Yeah, those are the forms. So the CR6. Oh, I don't know how I skipped it. My apologies. Yeah, but just take note, CR6 replace the CR14. Then, yeah, I was still explaining kilos. The Administrative Justice Act, we are seeing that being used a lot in litigation. The Finance Act, I've talked about the Finance Act. The Insolvency Act, Chapter 607, is of 2018. It replaced the old Insolvency Act, Chapter 604. Exchange control laws, I've talked about that. Money laundering, I've talked about that. The Deeds Registry Act, it's Chapter 2005. It's a very important act. Then on alternative dispute resolution, just to make you aware of arbitration, that is being used widely. Prescription Act I've talked about. The Mines and Minerals Act is also an important act around mining. The Labor Act, which is subject to many changes, laws on gold, Environmental Management Act, Wills Act, and Freedom of Testation. I will talk about that briefly later on, the freedom of testation. I know my brother, Tapiwa Chizana, is going to talk about trust and so, but I'll just talk briefly about that. Then there's the New Marriages Act. I decided to include it under family law. I will do that towards the end. Then as accountants, for you to be aware of the Chartered Accountants Act, particularly Section 12, which talks about offenses. Just be clear of that. Then the Code of Ethics for professional accountants, it regulates the way accountants carry out their work. The Constitution, I will not waste time there. Then on governance of companies, like I said, there's the New Companies Act, the regulations, shareholders agreements are also very important, an understanding of the Articles of Association, the Labor Act, company policies, and standard operating procedures. Very, very important. I'll move on very quickly. Very quickly. Yeah, then commercial agreements or commercial contracts. Just quickly, Memorandum of Understanding, MOU. This is very much confused with agreements. I was once involved in a court case at the High Court where rights were being claimed based on the MOU, and I had to educate the other part that an MOU is not necessarily an agreement. The non-disclosure agreements, non-circumvention agreement, memorandum of agreements, generally agreement of sale, lease agreements, joint ventures, tribute agreements in mining, shareholder agreements, share purchase agreements, share allotment agreements. Yeah. So please, when you are preparing this, make sure you have the necessary expertise or assistance. There's a problem of cut and paste. Cut and paste works to the extent that there are no disputes, but when there are disputes, you realize that you did not save any money. So, yeah, so engage your lawyers to assist you with, drafting of the contracts and so on. I'll move quickly. In very important provisions in contracts, make sure that the parties are properly defined so that in the event of disputes, you can sue the parties properly. Then where there are representatives, make sure there are documents to give authority to the representative. In the case of a company, that is done through board resolutions. If it's an individual acting on behalf of another individual, you do it through through powers of attorney. They can be general powers of attorney or special powers of attorney. So make sure the authority is there. Then pricing. Most of the litigation I've handled, even the commercial arbitration matters that I've handled, parties have appeared before me arguing over pricing, over payments, over breach of contract, over consequences of breach. Like I said earlier on, make sure that in contracts we have dispute resolution provisions, whether it's mediation, arbitration, or litigation, and also termination clause. Commercial disputes are around breach of contracts, termination of contracts, claims, debts, shareholding, valuation of shares, dividends. Yeah, just to mention that commercial arbitration is done in terms of the Commercial Arbitration Act. Then I'm getting to the end, audit reports and the law. Types of audit reports, you have external audit reports, which include opinions, you have internal audit reports, forensic audit reports or investigation reports. These, in terms of evidence, are in legal proceedings. Generally, audit reports, they have good probative or evidential value. Yeah. But there's something I wish to add. I can see a lot of litigation around audit reports. I wish to specifically touch on internal audit reports and forensic or investigation reports. I've been involved in situations where they've been contested, and my view is that one of the areas being contested is around the principle of natural justice, which says hear the other part. For example, there are some audit observations that would have been made, but before a report is finalized, whether the other part should be given the opportunity to respond, or if there's a response which the auditor does not agree with, how to handle that response. My view is that you may want to run such reports, particularly forensic audit reports, past your legal practitioner, just to make sure that it's watertight. Like I said, ethics and disciplinary issues, the Chartered Accountants Act and the code. Then family law, I'm right at the end. The Wills Act, Chapter 606, and what is called freedom of testation. There's a Supreme Court, very important, Chigwada versus Chigwada. What the case says is that through a will, a person has the freedom to give his assets or share of his assets to whoever the person wants. In the Chigwada versus Chigwada case, it was the case of a father who gave 50% of his half share in a house to his son. But the wife then contested that as the surviving spouse, she had the right to receive the 50% share. But freedom of testation says you can give whoever you want. It doesn't necessarily mean your spouse. Last but not least, the New Marriages Act. There's a New Marriages Act 515, effective September 2022. It recognizes civil marriages and customary marriages, but there's a very important section, Section 41. Yeah, it recognizes what are called civil partnerships between men and women who are over the age of 18, who have lived together without being legally married to each other, and have a relationship as a couple living together on a genuine domestic basis, and one of the partner can be married to another person. Yeah. It's a very important provision, and I urge all of you to read that section 41. It's very important. Why am I saying so? Because the same act says when that civil partnership is dissolved, there are implications on the sharing of assets acquired during the currents or subsistence of this civil partnership. Yeah, very important. Yeah, so estate planning, wills, trust. Then for me, future updates, I'm happy to give future updates on laws through ICAS if members agree. Then for your information, weekly I write in the business, in the Thursday Business Herald. I've been writing since 2020, and so far I've done about 200 articles. Then some of my articles, I post them on the law firm's website. Yeah, that's all. I thank you. Unfortunately, I don't have time to answer to any questions. Thank you.
A big round of applause to Mr. Hofis. While he's just stood there, you can just wait for a moment. May I call Mr. Charamba to come and present our speaker. Good. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. I think you can see there was another conversation. The only thing about this war, I'm not too sure about this other genuine domestic basis comment. We are supposed to have a quick video from Liquid. Do we have it ready, gentlemen? As we get ready for our next presenter, who is Mr. Tapiwa Chizana.
With Microsoft Azure. Azure Cloud Migration, powered by Liquid Intelligent Technologies, empowers your business with cost-effective solutions for secure data storage. With cloud migration, you'll never have to worry about overspending on building infrastructure, hardware and software updates, and server upkeep and recovery.
Hi, I'm David Brooks, and I'm the Azure guy here at Liquid. Moving to the cloud can be an incredibly daunting prospect, but it doesn't have to be. By engaging with Liquid, we will start to understand exactly where you are today and where you want to go, all the time introducing you to new technologies and new ways of working, helping to make you more efficient and able to react to things happening in your market.
You can cut the cost of hosting your own data center, and you won't even have to worry about the equipment, software, and licensing. The best part? With Azure Cloud Migration, you can safeguard your company's data by using advanced data protection and recovery processes. Introduce modernization with Azure. Let Liquid Intelligent Technologies simplify your journey to the cloud. Do you want to move your on-prem service to the cloud and reduce your hardware cost? It's time to migrate to the cloud with Microsoft Azure. Azure Cloud Migration, powered by Liquid Intelligent Technologies, empowers your business with cost-effective solutions for secure data storage. With cloud migration, you'll never have to worry about overspending on building infrastructure, hardware and software updates, and server upkeep and recovery.
Hi, I'm David Brooks, and I'm the Azure guy here at Liquid. Moving to the cloud can be an incredibly daunting prospect, but it doesn't have to be. By engaging with Liquid, we will start to understand exactly where you are today and where you want to go, all the time introducing you to new technologies and new ways of working, helping to make you more efficient and able to react to things happening in your market.
You can cut the cost of hosting your own data center, and you won't even have to worry about the equipment, software, and licensing. The best part? With Azure Cloud Migration, you can safeguard your company's data by using advanced data protection and recovery processes. Introduce modernization with Azure. Let Liquid Intelligent Technologies simplify your journey to the cloud.
Right. Thank you, Liquid, one of our key sponsors. Allow me to call upon Mr. Tapiwa Chizana, who is our last presenter for this afternoon. Tapiwa is the founder and managing partner for ACRA Solutions, an innovative consulting and advisory firm in Zimbabwe. He is a qualified chartered accountant with over 25 years experience at Deloitte. He was the managing partner for Deloitte Bulawayo and served as a partner for 16 years, delivering consulting in audit advisory as well as corporate rescue assignments. He previously held leadership positions within Deloitte, Central African Cluster, which includes Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Malawi. And Tapiwa is a former president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Zimbabwe. He's also a past president. He's also a past vice president of the Insolvency and Restructuring Association of Zimbabwe. Tapiwa is a member of the Turnaround Management Association of Southern Africa, TMSA. He's a certified business rescue practitioner and attained his certification with the University of Pretoria. He is a founder and a director of Fortress Africa. I think we've seen their brochures outside. Fortress Africa is involved in estate planning so that those genuine domestic other ones may not have any impact, establishing family trusts as well as providing family office services. Tapiwa is passionate about protecting the girl child through effective estate planning as well as advisory. Tapiwa is married to 3 children. Someone thought I was going to say to 3 wives, eh? No, he's married to 1 wife, has got 3 children, and also holds a bachelor's degree in theology. Oh, sorry, I nearly ruined your day, yeah? All right, a round of applause as we welcome Tapiwa. Yeah.
This clicker works.
Fantastic. I think it's afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed. I've been reminded that I stand between the golfers and the tee box, as well as between us and lunch. So I'll make a very quick presentation. So basically, who's behind Fortress Africa? So I'm a non-executive director. So the executive director is Diana Irunyemba. Diana, maybe you can just stand up so that people can see you. Welcome. And what I'm going to basically do today is just very briefly share 5 reasons why I got involved in estate planning and 5 things that can go wrong. Then I end my presentation. So these are the reasons why I got involved in estate planning. So firstly, to minimize family conflict. Okay, so there's obviously lots of conflict when someone dies around who inherits and what they inherit. And as society has progressed, the who inherits and what is inherited question has been largely answered in many families, but what hasn't really been dealt with is how they inherit. So I had a situation where 9 sisters called me and we had a meeting, and their father was very wealthy and he left a lot of wealth. And basically they said, look, can you help us with our estate situation? I said, well, what's wrong? Then, so I asked all the questions, did your father leave a trust? And he says, yes, he did. So I kind of thought, well, surely that should have solved all the problems. But actually, the problem is the father had a trust. And like most trusts, they talk about who inherits and what is inherited, but they don't go into the detail of how will that inheritance be handled. And you can imagine with 9 sisters, some of them married, some not. There's assets in there, someone to sell, someone to mortgage. It was chaotic. We spent 6 months trying to come up with a solution as to how these things were going to be distributed. And I remember the day like it was yesterday. It was that final meeting where everyone was supposed to sign on the dotted line after 6 months of a lot of hard work. And then for some reason, I'm not sure what happened, but there was a little squabble. Someone passed some comment and they fell out. And the whole thing was cancelled. So we're back to square one. So the question of how things are inherited is very, very important. The second reason why I kind of thought, I need to be involved is because I realized that legal input alone is actually not adequate. And most of us will innocently go and see a lawyer, get a template, and sign off and move on. But legal input is not enough because there's often need of financial and tax advice along the way. And furthermore, the reality is that one of the best estate planning methods you could actually have is actually just to have good relationships with people. There's a case in the Supreme Court currently where the children are actually suing the father while he's still alive. And it's because the father has tried to move his assets into a trust. And the children are saying, well, look, why are you prejudicing our mother? So it's actually in the Supreme Court because, the father was doing some separate deals on the side. The third reason why I thought, look, I need to be involved in estate planning is to eradicate poverty. Because what happens is that when wealth is passed down from generation to generation, it's helpful if the next generation has an opening balance sheet. So their wealth is actually preserved for them to be able to actually build upon. And often what happens is when there's no clear estate planning, then there is no open balance sheet for the next generation to be able to move forward. Protecting the African girl child, I won't go too deeply into that within our African culture and context, there's often a side-lying and a prejudicing of the girl child. And then the final reason why I got involved in estate planning is because I don't have the perfect estate plan myself. So I wish someone had told me 20 years ago that estate planning is for everyone. Then I would have made certain decisions. If I would have, maybe put certain assets, maybe not in that particular name or in that particular company, I would have done things very differently. And now I'm on the road to trying to regularize as best as I can. So basically my motivation as well is if I can perhaps give someone advice that I wish I had had 20 years ago, then their estate will be much better than mine. So I'm now just going to share 5 things that can go wrong, and then I will end. And just as a side, Stanford Gwanzira is an expert in trusts. If you catch him on a boat cruise or whatever, free advice over there. I benefit a lot from his input as well. Thanks, Stan. So what can go wrong? First one, someone dies without a will, okay? So this is kind of the typical situation. African culture kicks in, the brothers take over, spouse and kids are sidelined, sad story, just too much drama, and people are like, you know what, I'd rather live in peace than fight this, okay? So that can go wrong. So the point there is it's important for us to have a will or a trust, because that's a good example of what can go wrong. Secondly, I think I'm doing well on time, MC? Secondly, what can go wrong is someone dies with no will or trust. So, a good lawyer will tell us that there's something called the Deceased Estate Succession Act. So what it looks like is that if you die without a will, and then the state then determines how your things will be distributed, okay? So, your estate is now subject to, whatever formula that the state dictates and thinks is fair, okay? So, for example, the matrimonial home and household effects ordinarily would go, to your spouse, and there's things around, sentimental value and kind of guidance in terms of, what you would do if perhaps a property is inherited by many people and so forth. So the state does try and be fair, but the point I'm making is that you'd rather not leave it to the state to decide who gets what, okay? Because firstly, that process is probably going to be fraught with disputes and is long drawn out. And secondly, it may not actually be the right answer for your specific circumstance. So that's the second thing that can go wrong. The third thing that can go wrong, I think, am I clicking correctly there? Okay, this can go wrong. No? Aha. Mbinga CAZ dies with multiple properties. Okay, this is a very, very common one. The beneficiaries have no cash flow to wind up the estate. So you've worked so hard as a CA, you've got assets of $1 million, you die. So if all your assets are under a will, then you're looking at about 9% of costs. Once you throw in the executor's fees, the master's fees, it's about 9%, right? So if you've got an estate of $1 million, so that's 90 grand. So it's quite likely that your beneficiaries won't have $90,000 sitting in a bank account somewhere, okay? So what then happens is that, your family is crying, and then the executor will come and say, look, we really need to wind up this estate, okay? Look, you've got that house in Mount Pleasant. I know the market price is like 400,000, but look, you know what? We really need to wind up this estate. I've got a buyer for 280, okay? Probably a friend, probably some side deal happening. So this asset then goes, and it's a fire sale. And at that stage, everyone's crying and grieving, so they just let things go. So there is a cash flow consideration, and a lot of wealthy people end up getting stuck there because the beneficiaries don't have the cash flow. So there's different ways of kind of trying to sort that out. Firstly is to perhaps establish a trust, okay? And work towards putting your assets in a trust, because if you die, the trust is a separate legal person. That 9% doesn't apply in a trust. So the trust effectively continues living. And if your trust deed is well detailed and documented, then there shouldn't be any problems. You can also take up insurance on those costs. Okay, so you can take up an insurance policy. You can look at your estate and say, look, my estate is about $1 million. Winding up costs will be 90,000. You take up an insurance policy such that when you die, the insurance payout goes specifically to wind up the estate. The reality is, if you don't do that, even if you have a life policy, it's unlikely that your beneficiaries will use 90,000 to wind up your estate, right? They'll kind of just kick the can down the road and just hope that that bill disappears, which it never does. The fourth thing that can go wrong, and a lot of us find ourselves in this place where your parents are deceased, okay? And then raising money from all the beneficiaries to meet the wind-up costs is normally complicated. And often it's not a lot of money, right? It could be like, I don't know, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000. Maybe your folks left one house or whatever, okay? And now there's 3 or 4 of you, and the bill is $10,000, and it's like, okay, guys, let's chip in, and everyone's looking at each other, right? So, and then in the end, there's like a stalemate, and this estate remains open for years and years and years and years. What often happens, sadly, is that one of the beneficiaries then dies. Okay, so it just further complicates that estate, okay, in terms of finally, resolving it. So you'll find that the master's office is full of what I've called unconcluded estates, okay, where the files are just there. Okay. One possible remedy, Diana will be very happy with this, is to wind up the estate on credit with Fortress Africa. Okay, so you can approach Fortress and say, look, you know what, to get money out of my siblings is such a pain. Can you do this on credit? And they can try and help. Finally, what can go wrong? This is where your trustees do not carry out your wishes after you're gone. Okay? And this is often, and this is all due respect to lawyers in the house, this is often due to generic trust deed templates issued by some lawyers. So the Fortress trust deed is probably about 20 pages compared to your normal trust of maybe 8, 9 pages. Why? Because we go into specific details concerning your specific circumstances, and we try and minimize the discretion given to trustees. I had a meeting with one of the wealthiest medical practitioners in the country, and he showed me his trust. He said, look, please review my trust. So I reviewed his trust. So he has just had a divorce, poor guy, and they said, look, please review my trust. And I reviewed it, reputable, professionals used to actually draft the trust. And then I noticed something. Then I said, well, why is it that the spouses of your biological children are also beneficiaries in your trust? I was like, oh yeah, that's a good question. Why is it? And I said, look, you've just been divorced. So surely, what if it happens to them? Your child dies, okay? And then your Mkwasha is now inheriting your wealth, then he remarries, and it's a drama. So anyway, my point is, and I'm no disrespect to lawyers, my point is, it's helpful every now and again to have even your trust deeds reviewed, regularly, because circumstances change and there might be different views on what should be in your trust. So what you can also do is consider including an administrative trustee, plucking for Fortress again, as one of your trustees. So what some people will do is, if you're married, you might say, okay, look, I'm going to have one person from his side of the family as a trustee, another one from her side perhaps as a trustee, and Fortress will come along and say, that's great, but we're happy to be an administrative trustee, okay, so to be a trustee on your trust. And you know what? Your family members watch us, we watch them, and it just kind of helps sometimes because it kind of enhances the accountability of your trustee structure. And it also helps because sometimes you need someone to speak truth to power. So imagine, I'm thinking of the African culture. Let's say, the guy dies, okay, and then his widow is there, and then there's some kind of trouble. So some uncle, okay, who needs to be put in his place. I mean, she can just say, look, please speak to Fortress, okay? I mean, they're the trustees. and will gladly tell uncle to jump in a lake, you know, see you in court if you want to come, kind of thing, and fight battles that the family or the spouse doesn't have to fight and doesn't have to be involved in the family politics. So that's just a summary of what can go wrong. Oh, I'm on number 4. Okay, so I think there's a 5th one. No, there isn't a 5th one. That was number 5. My numbering was wrong. So those are the directors. So Diana is the executive director. So there's 2 non-exec directors. There's myself. There's Unity Sake, who's a partner at Cantor and Immerman. So you might feel free to approach me or any of the others. I've got some very good friends who would say to me, look, Tapiwa, I know you're a non-executive, but a trust is about trust, okay? So if I'm going to sign up, I want you to be involved. At which point I say, yeah, sure. You know, so because of that, I have a portfolio of trusts that I will personally handle. Then I also have other friends who say, you know, Tapiwa, you're just such a good friend that I don't want you to be my trustee, which is also fine. You know, it's a bit like, you know, not wanting your friend to be your personal doctor or whatever. So that's also totally fine, and any of these other directors can be of assistance. So those are our contact details. There's no time for Q&A, but Diana will be up and around, and I'll be available to answer any questions. And if there are any very, very hard questions, we'll just refer you to Stan. Thank you very much.
Zana, I'm the founder and managing partner of the ACR Solutions. Did you know that 75% of ERP implementations actually fail? As ACR, we've found out that there's 3 success factors. Number 1, independent project management. It's so important that an ERP implementation is independently projectly managed, and it's because that people within an organization just won't have the time capacity to give towards the project management.
Let's give a big round of applause to Mr. Jizana. Want to thank you so much, Tapiwa. I know I'm one of those friends of yours who have refused to take you as part of the trustees, but you're still a very good friend. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for all our presenters from the morning to this afternoon. It's been very much engaging. I've really enjoyed being up here, directing the ceremonies as well as leading the conversations. I think as we break for lunch, we have some feedback that we need from you. So we have, if you can kindly scan for us and complete that questionnaire. We need it for the coming events. Basically, we have this afternoon to enjoy, to mix, to mingle, and let's have the conversations, let's network as we go through the activities. Those who are going for the boat cruise, please enjoy the sunset. Those who are going to the rainforest, I wish you had taken an early one tomorrow morning so that you could see the sunrise as well. It will be very interesting. And those who are going to the golf course, those who want to take a bet on me, I'm available. Otherwise, thank you so much. Enjoy your lunch and the rest of the day. Let's meet here in the evening at 6:30.